What's going on, everybody? Good morning and happy Wednesday, making the turn Wednesday. DK Show coming at you right now on your radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Had to reach down and grab something. 790 AM, also online, Sports Talk 1051.com. Got your Google and Alexa home devices. The Sports Talk app, video stream also up and rolling here this morning. We've got a lot to catch up on. A lot of stuff happening yesterday afternoon, late last night. We're going to talk a little Bucks with the firing of head coach Adrian Griffin. Adrian Griffin getting fired yesterday afternoon. We'll get you the latest about possibly Doc Rivers. Sounds like Doc Rivers may be the new head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks, but a couple other names being floated out there as possibilities. We got that. The Brewers late last night also making a free agent move. Rhys Hoskins, the first baseman, signing a 2-year, $34 million deal with the Milwaukee Brewers. Does include an opt-out after the first season, but nothing confirmed yet from the ball club themselves. But Jeff Passan from ESPN first to report that late last night. So if you're just waking up, you're like, whoa, what? What did I miss out? There you have it. So Hoskins missed out last year, tore his ACL in spring training, but slugging first baseman, 2022, 30 home runs for the Philadelphia Phillies. And he's hit pretty darn well in Milwaukee. Over 300, was it 346 at AmFam Field there. So the Brewers getting a power slugging first baseman, which is a little bit out of the norm because, well, he is a poor defender. So he is a poor defender. Now, could probably play some DH if the Brewers decide to put him in that role. So he's an above-average hitter, brought the power. But as we know, Matt Arnold, as he said last year, they prioritize defense. They really like defense. So maybe splitting some time at that DH role over there too. But nonetheless, the Brewers adding some pop at first base. We'll hit that up. Do you like that move? Do you not like the move? Thumbs up, thumbs down. We'll throw a little green and gold chat in here too, as we will kind of continue our consulting for the Green Bay Packers. We're going to take a look at the running backs here today. We got that. We got our business of sports coming at you, brought to you by Security Financial Bank at about 8:05 this morning. And then stock reports are also going to be due. Whose stock is up and whose stock is down. But let's get at it. Let's jump right into it. Let's get to the point here this morning. Big news out there with the firing of Adrian Griffin, the head coach, former head coach now for the Milwaukee Bucks in his first year. Now, I'm sure some of you have already gone out there yesterday, last night and such, and kind of looked at, some of the reports or read some of the blogs or articles and probably heard some stuff that was going on here. I'll kind of paraphrase some of it, but there was one I was reading a little bit from The Athletic. I was reading a little bit from Bleacher Report. Apparently in the last week or so, front office officials started to watch practice, which apparently raised some eyebrows to players and coaching members and such. There was also a report out there that Doc Rivers had actually been kind of mentoring Adrian Griffin these last few weeks, last couple months or so. And then, of course, we've heard players like Giannis and Bobby Portis public about some of their frustrations with how they're playing right now. And there was some of that going on behind the scenes too. And one interesting thing that I had read was John Horst, the Bucks general manager, finally came to the conclusion that he thinks Adrian Griffin's going to be a really good NBA coach, but maybe not right now with a team that has a win now mindset, that the timeline is to win now, which has some people, I'm assuming, scratching their heads a little bit, because if you have that timeline, you have that timeline, why do you make that hire to begin with? And it's a fair question. Did it change a little bit after they acquired Damian Lillard? Possibly. Maybe it kind of changed their outlook, their mindsets a little bit here. Now, there's some speculation out there when the Bucks made this hire that they didn't know if they were going to have Brook Lopez back. They thought maybe there was a good shot he was going to go to Houston. Didn't know about Middleton, and they weren't sure if Giannis was going to sign an extension. So there was some thought out there, like they may take a step back this season. And, well, they ended up re-signing Brook. Giannis signs an extension, and they acquired Damian Lillard. So did it change a little bit here? Were they initially thinking, hey, we're going to bring in a coach and kind of maybe take a step back this year, get a little experience, kind of develop a system, and then go for it the following year? Could be. That could be part of it. Now, there was also reports that this was a Giannis pick, that this was the guy Giannis wanted. Whether that's true or not, obviously we heard that he met with him, and that was kind of the rumblings out there, that this was the guy that Giannis had picked from the finalists and such. If that is the case, this is, I think, a little bit on Giannis too. But as we've seen with John Horst and this Bucks team the last few years, they're not shy to make moves that they feel like would benefit this team in the immediate future, right? So what do you think about this move? And are you good with Doc Rivers being potentially the new head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks? Bucks are going to be in action tonight, taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Joe Prunty is going to fill in as interim head coach here for the Bucks. And if that name sounds familiar, well, he was the interim head coach when the Bucks let go of Jason Kidd back in the day, and led the ball club to the postseason and seven-game series loss to the Boston Celtics. So he's got a little experience in being an interim head coach and such, and obviously did it with the Bucks a few years ago too. So, but there you have it. I mean, kind of a crazy, busy 12, 24, 18 hours, whatever the heck it was when it first dropped yesterday, with the news about Adrian Griffin being ousted as head coach. What do you make of it? Let's hit it up right away. Okay, we'll take our first break and then really get things going here this morning. I want to hit up everything. I know. Plus, right? Forgot Badgers. Badger basketball picking up a win last night too, against the Golden Gophers, to remain in first place in the Big Ten Conference. First place in the Big Ten Conference. So, all right, let's jump right into it. That texting line's always rolling. Okay, that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line always rolling over there. Start to hit us up with some texts, 715-830-1912. A little bit of a note. I'll just pass this along right now. If you hear a weird hum or kind of a little bit of maybe feedback in the background, or just sounds weird, we got a couple fans going on here because one, it's hotter than hot in the studio, having some issues with the air and such. So I need a couple fans rolling in here. Otherwise, I won't make it 3 hours in this very tiny studio and not having any air in here. So if you hear a little bit, I apologize, but I need some fans going on in here. Okay. So let's just jump right into it. Let's talk some Bucks to open up things. Trade deadline's coming up, but that's not the big thing out there. Bucks moving on from their first-year head coach already. Your thoughts? Let's talk about it. New year, but still those same aches and pains. How about you do something about it this time? Make your appointment with Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and start living that pain-free and healthy life today. That way, when summer rolls around, you will be able to enjoy those outdoor activities pain-free. Feels like summer right now in the studio. Holy moly, the board is even like smoking hot. I don't know if this is good or not, man. Oh boy. Yikes. All right. Um, get started now by visiting cvosm.com to schedule your appointment. The entire team at Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine is dedicated to providing you with the care you need to get back to living your life pain-free. All right. Let's get things going here this morning. Talk some Bucks to open up things. The big news yesterday afternoon, the Bucks firing first-year head coach Adrian Griffin. Didn't even get through his first year, and the Bucks deciding to move on from him. There's been various reports out there, nuggets, stories, trying to detail some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on. Apparently, front office, general manager, assistant general manager has been watching practice the last week and a half, observing practice, which apparently raised some eyebrows amongst the players and some of the coaching staff, like, oh, wow, something going on here. There was a report also that Doc Rivers had been kind of mentoring Adrian Griffin, that the Bucks reached out to him to see if he'd be able to kind of mentor and help him and kind of gain some experience, kind of as a sounding board, if you will. We've heard, I mean, which isn't surprising with some of the comments that have been thrown out there in the media after games. We've heard some frustration amongst players, locker room, miscommunication, not really buying into the system, or a bunch of different stuff has been floated out there. And one of them, too, was that John Horst, this was from ESPN, Bucks general manager John Horst believes Griffin will develop into a very good NBA head coach, but lost the confidence that he could do it within the timeline of the Bucks' immediate championship window, sources said. So I'm sure there's going to be the question out there, why make the hire in the first place if you had concerns about a first-time head coach? Why make that? Now, there was some speculation out there, too, when you're kind of looking back at this, and, it's hindsight's 2020. It's easy to kind of look back and try to connect some dots and such, but there was some rumors out there that at one point in the offseason, or a few points in the offseason, the Bucks weren't sure if they're going to get Brook Lopez back, that Houston was really courting him, and maybe it looked like that Brook Lopez was going to sign a deal with Houston. They weren't sure about Middleton, and they weren't positive that Giannis was going to sign an extension. So some of the thought process out there potentially was bringing Adrian Griffin, maybe taking a step back this year, but molding him in, bringing him in, and kind of changing things up. And because one of the things is when Adrian Griffin was first hired, one of the things that he was noted for was developing relationships with players and really mentoring younger players. So maybe the Bucks had that mindset, like, hey, if we're going to be losing out on some veterans, let's bring in a coach that's really good at mentoring younger players, bringing him in and kind of growing with that. Well, things changed. They had Brook Lopez. They signed him up. Middleton. They make the move for Dame, for Dame time. And then Giannis signs the extension. So when you make a move for Dame time, Damian Lillard, that championship window it was already kind of now, but it got like even more so now. So it changed a little bit. That timeline changed a little bit. So is it at fault for the Bucks, who will now be paying 3 head coaches this year, because they're still paying off Mike Budenholzer's contract. They're going to be paying off Adrian Griffin's contract, and whoever they hire right now, that's 3 head coaches that they're going to be paying. You can point the finger at the front office for maybe making that decision, not hiring the best coach. Maybe point a little bit at Giannis if it is true that this was Giannis's pick, that this was the guy he wanted. Because as we know in the NBA, right? We know in the NBA that it's if you got a superstar, a lot of moves are determined whether or not that uh whether or not that superstar wants them or not. So that you could point the finger maybe at Giannis there too, if that was on the up and up. If that was Giannis's guy. Didn't work out. So now it sounds like it's Doc Rivers. A couple other names that was being floated out there from Chris Haynes, NBA insider for TNT and Bleacher Report. He had said that the Bucks were expected to maybe kind of talk to Jeff Van Gundy, Nate McMillan, those two guys over there too. So, but it sure seems like Doc Rivers is the guy. What are your thoughts on that? We mentioned yesterday, we were talking, NBA trade deadline. We were talking about the rumor that was out there that the Bucks were kind of interested in Dejounte Murray from the Atlanta Hawks. We were breaking that down the other day, talking about that. That's another shooter. Guy is averaging career highs to over 20 points per game. Trade deadline's approaching. Probably have to give up Bobby Portis for that. I was thinking we were going to be talking some more potential trade rumors with it being a few weeks ago. I honestly did not expect we'd be talking about head coach firing. Maybe I'm not completely surprised. Maybe it's more so that I'm surprised they actually did it. That they actually did it within his first year. So, and I know there's going to be a lot of, I think it was a former NBA player that tweeted us, or yeah, it might have been Gilbert Arenas. I think I saw this. Doc is almost in a no win-win situation when he goes to the Bucks. And I don't know if people would agree with this, but this is what Gilbert Arenas had said, that he goes there and he wins. He won't get any of the credit because it'll be all the players. It'll be, he's got a loaded team. Giannis, Dame, Brooke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if he doesn't win, he will get the blame. So he won't get any credit, but he'll get all the blame. I don't know if that's what other people kind of feel like too, but the thing was with Doc that a lot of people probably have issues with is that you look at the teams he's had, and he's only gotten one NBA championship. Celtics. He got that championship, was it 08? Had that championship with the Celtics. Had Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. So he had those guys. Then he goes to the 76ers. Doesn't win there. Chris Paul, a little bit more in his prime and such. Doesn't win there. Then the last couple of years goes to the 76ers. They finished top 3 Eastern Conference. They go to the Eastern Conference semis the first couple of years. Joel Embiid, last year James Harden and such. Doesn't win a championship there. So the knock on Doc Rivers is wins a lot of games in the regular season, has had a lot of talented teams, but maybe should have more championships. Maybe should have won more championships. I don't know how. I mean, I guess maybe the one positive in this whole thing is at least Doc has experience coaching a lot of personalities or a lot of superstars, if you will. And I don't know if this is going to be a long-term situation because, I mean, if you look at it right now, I don't know what other options you would have out there. I think the Bucks are trying to find a coach at this point in time, a veteran coach who's got experience maybe coaching a lot of superstars. With a lot of superstars comes a lot of personalities to manage. I don't know if this will be a long-term thing. I'm sure they'll probably, if it does come down to it, it'll probably be a few-year deal, couple-year deal here. But at this point in time, who else are you going to go out there and get? Is it Jeff Van Gundy, who hasn't coached in a long time? Is it Nate McMillan, who hasn't won a championship either, and he's coached a few teams? Just got fired from Atlanta a couple years ago. Like, who else? Who else is out there? And let me ask you this, Bucks fans: did the Bucks make a mistake in firing Mike Budenholzer? Do you think they regret firing Mike Budenholzer? I don't know if they regret firing Mike Budenholzer, and I don't think they will admit that they regret hiring Adrian Griffin, because I think they will kind of, use that mindset of like, well, after we hired him, we ended up getting so and so and got Damian. Timelines change, expectations got greater. One maybe a little bit more of a for sure thing. What I mean by a for sure thing, you kind of know what you're getting with him. I don't know right now who else would is available out there. I mean, Mark Jackson, people have been talking about, but Mark Jackson hasn't coached in a while either. And apparently he's burned some bridges. So I don't know. Who else would be another option out there to come in halfway through an NBA season to a team that is in second place in the Eastern Conference standings, championship aspirations, two of the top 75 players of all time, Giannis and Damian. Giannis still in his prime. Damian looking for a championship. Who else would you bring in? But nothing yet official about, at this point in time, at least, with Doc Rivers. I know there was some, I think, CNN Sports posted up there that Doc was going to be guy. I mean, it sure seems like it's going to be Doc is going to be the guy that, I think at this point it'd be probably kind of surprising if he's not. But it'll be interesting when he comes in because he's going to inherit a coaching staff. I'm sure he'll be given the opportunity maybe to bring in some guys. How much can he change right away? How much does he change? Does he try to slowly integrate what he wants to do? Does he just kind of pick up where Griffin's been doing stuff? I think, maybe a little bit of a benefit if he was, in fact, mentoring Griffin and giving him some pointers and some tips and that. Maybe Griffin was kind of starting to employ some of that. But this is something to watch here. This is going to be something to watch going forward. All right, keep your thoughts coming. Hit us up with some text, 715-830-1912. Bucks will be in action tonight, going up against Cleveland at home. Joe Prunty again going to be filling in as interim coach. They got the Cavs again on Friday, the New Orleans again, or New Orleans at home on Saturday before the Bucks hit a little bit of a road trip starting next Monday. Denver, Portland, Dallas, Utah, and then Phoenix. So after they're done with these 3 home games here, they're hitting the road for a 5-game road trip, Western Conference road trip, before returning home for a little bit there in middle of February. So they get a new coach. It sounds like it's going to be a quick thing. It sounds like it's going to be a quick process. So no better way than, I guess, a new coach to really bond with his new team than having a 5-game road trip, bonding on the road and such. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more of your thoughts. Plus, we got Brewers stuff to talk about. Brewers made a free agent signing late last night. And actually a decent one, in my opinion. Got a couple cool things happening at our good friends from Hy-Vee coming up on the 25th tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. You can sample your way around the store and let Hy-Vee help you plan your tailgating party. It's a taste of football. So you'll be able to taste test a bunch of stuff, a bunch of foods, and maybe get some ideas for your party, your big game party coming up. Also on Friday, the 26th, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., Superior Fresh is going to be over there. Fresh salmon cut to order. All right. And then you get free Superior Fresh salad with the salmon purchase. Experts on hand to answer any of your questions. That's going on Friday, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. No word if they're going to be doing the tossing of the fish or anything like that over there. But couple big days coming up here for our good friends at Hy-Vee. Speak really quick. One more note for the Bucks, and we'll talk more about the Bucks throughout the morning here. Magic Johnson did tweet 9 hours ago. I want to congratulate my friend and one of the best to ever coach in the NBA, Doc Rivers, for accepting the Milwaukee Bucks head coaching job. Doc is a world champion, so he where does it go there? So he was in demand. And my computer just froze up here. I think everything's going to just go on the fritz here. So he will demand that the Bucks play hard, play good defense, and play well together. All right. Your thoughts on the Doc Rivers hire? You can keep your thoughts coming. A couple of you right now saying that you don't think Doc is the answer. We've got Jeremy saying, while I don't disagree with the firing of Adrian Griffin, I do disagree that Doc Rivers is going to bring them a championship. Doc Rivers has had multiple opportunities with championship caliber teams to do exactly that, and he has not been able to achieve it all with those opportunities. But one time, I don't think he's the right coach. I don't think Doc is the answer. And if the Bucks make a trade, do not include Bobby Portis. He is a glue guy. Heard somewhere that Dejounte Murray was a trade target of the Bucks. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. We broke that down, and there was some talk about Bobby Portis would have to potentially be a part of that trade, plus like 2 first-round picks for Murray from the Hawks there. G-Man, way to go, Bucky. Last night, Bucks go get Doc Rivers. Way to go, Brewers. The Brewers win the World Series this year. I like the move. The Bucks will win the title this year. Speaking of the Brewers late last night, Jeff Passan reporting and later confirmed by others, they've got their new first baseman, at least for 1 year. Rhys Hoskins signing with the Brewers. The former Philadelphia Phillies sluggy agreed to a 2-year deal, $34 million. Jeff Passan did note that there is an opt-out after the first season. Hoskins missed the entire 2023 season after tearing his ACL in spring training, but you're gone from the game. It sounds like he's well enough, and in fact, his rehab was going so well last year that he was a candidate to be added to the World Series roster had the Phillies, advanced that far in the postseason. So, but he is a power bat. He is a power bat. According to this CBS Sports Fantasy one from 2018 to 2022, Hoskins was one of the top power bats in the game, averaging 34 home runs per 162 games. He's also been a steady source of power, walks, and good clubhouse vibes since he broke into the league in 2017. Some numbers, too, with how well he has played in American Family Field during his day. Not too bad. Not too bad. He, where was it? 340, was it 346? I think I'd seen in 9 games. He's hit 5 dingers over there. So we know it's a hitter's ballpark over there, and the Brewers have been looking for a power bat for a while now, especially at that first base position. And they're at least going to get it for a year. Now, the one thing with Hoskins is that he doesn't play good defense. He does not play good defense. Yeah, he's hit, here it is. It was, in fact, in 9 career games at American Family Field, Hoskins has hit 5 home runs over there. Okay. I think I was off on the batting average there. I don't know why I got 346 in my mind, but yeah, okay, 5 home runs in 9 career games over there. But he's not very good at defense, which is a little bit outside the norm, at least what Matt Arnold, Brewer general manager, told all of us last year, heading to the trade deadline, that they prioritize defense, that they wouldn't sacrifice defense a whole lot to bring in some offensive power. And you kind of look at how the team ended last year and how things went. Maybe it's a little bit of a change of a mindset. Like, okay, maybe we do have to sacrifice a little bit of defense to bring in some more offense with this thing. I think that's why they made this move. They bring in a power bat, a guy that you're plugging in the middle of that lineup. Yep, you're going to struggle a little bit on the defensive side, but at least you got that power. And the thing is, too, maybe he's more suited for the DH role. You know, we're assuming first base, or a lot of us are assuming first base. He might just be the DH option if they want to still have solid defensive first base production over there. He might be just slotted into that DH role right now. And maybe that's going to be his initial role going forward, especially since, yeah, he's coming off ACL injury and he's had a lot of time to recover from it, but he's also 31 years old. And maybe that's his career going forward, his majority part of DH. He'll probably play some time over at first base. He'll get some games over there. He'll get some starts. No doubt about it. But maybe he's better suited for the DH role now for the crew. So when you look at this Brewers lineup, you know, you got Yelly, another veteran there. You add in Hoskins. Throw in Jackson Cheerio whenever he does come up. And I feel like it'll be sooner rather than later. Sal Frelick. You know, we'll see about Garrett Mitchell. Willie Adames. You got Contreras over there. It's a nice mixture of some veterans and some young talent over there. Speaking of the Brewers, Ryan Braun. It was announced yesterday that he has been inducted on the Brewers Walk of Fame. Now, they got the Walk of Fame and the Wall of Fame. The Walk of Fame is a little bit more prestigious. I had to double check that. It is a little bit more prestigious, but he is a 23rd player inducted into the to the Walk of Fame. It's the club's highest honor, short of a number retirement. I know this might ruffle feathers, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Anasio, who loves Ryan Braun, retires at number 8 at some point. Speaking of baseball, too, we've got 3 new members in the Hall of Fame. Major League Baseball Hall of Fame yesterday. 3 new members were announced. Adrian Beltre, he's in, got 95% of the vote. The long-time, very consistent third baseman. He's in the Hall of Fame, first ballot. Former Minnesota Twin, Joe Mauer, also in on first ballot. And then Joe Mauer just kind of barely getting in, 76.1%. Todd Helton also getting in, 79.7% of the vote. Adrian had 95.1%. Billy Wagner falling just short. Needs that 75% to get in there. 73.8. Gary Sheffield, 63.9. Outside Andrew Jones, 61.6% as well. So those 3 will be joining Jim Leyland, who was already voted in earlier this year. The players receiving less than 5% and who will drop off in future ballots: Jose Bautista, Victor Martinez, Bartolo Colon, Matt Holliday, Jose Reyes, Brandon Phillips, Adrian Gonzalez. All will be off the ballot. David Wright just kind of barely getting that. He had 6.2% over there. Anybody wondering? Alex Rodriguez, 34.8% of the vote. So that's your new Hall of Fame class. Catching up on some more messages here. Ben saying, I like this move for the Brewers. I do wonder if Mark Ananasio has a little bit of a revenge factor and really wants to take it to Council and the Cubs, if only for just this year. Hope they're not done making some moves. Would still like a little bit more depth. I do agree with you. I think he's going to be more of an option at DH than at first base. Another texter here, Chris, saying solid move by the Brewers. Hopefully the guy won't opt out after just 1 year. I think he is going to primarily play DH. Would still like to see the Brewers at a little bit more depth at first base. Question text, this one coming in. Do you think this means Tyler Black will be called up to play third base? I know they just came out with a list of the top third base prospects. I think it was MLB.com that did that. And he was listed at number 5. And I know that's something we've talked about with our good buddy Brandenburg quite a bit. And there was some talk, could Tyler Black maybe play first base? Could he play a little second base over there? I think he's going to get a shot to win that third base. You got Andrew Monasterio. That's probably going to be involved in that too. But I guess if I were to do right now on January, what are we at, 24th? An opening day lineup, a normal lineup, if you will. I think your DH is going to be Hoskins. First base, maybe a little bit up in the air right now. Second's Terang. Shortstop's Willie. Maybe I'll go Tyler Black for third. Maybe I'll go with that. Tyler Black or Andrew, I think. Because you look at, and then outfield, I mean, Yelly's going to get in there. I think it's Sal. There's part of me, I don't know if they'll have Jackson on the opening day roster. I think they got to trade one of those guys yet. I could be completely wrong because they've come in with how many of those guys before, and it's not deterred them before. But, I mean, you look at your first base options right now. You got Owen Miller. You got Jake Bowers. And you got Jones. I mean, there's not a lot of consistent depth over there. Maybe they give Owen Miller another shot. The Wisconsin native at that last year. I mean, he hit 261 last year, 5 home runs and such. And he's a versatile infielder, but maybe it's a rotational thing over. And we'll see. We'll see. Other than that, I like the move that they brought in another bat. That's something that a lot of us as Brewers fans have wanted to see for a while now. So they went out there and they got a bat. And hopefully it works out. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is just going to be a 1-year thing. Almost kind of like Yasmani Grandal. Remember that? He came in for a year, then ended up going to the White Sox, signing a big deal over there. I think that opt-out thing in there, it says 2-year deal, but if Jeff Passan's correct, and Jeff Passan's been more correct than wrong, if there is that opt-out deal and it's a player opt-out, I mean, if Hoskins goes out there and, has a great year, he's going to make bank somewhere too. But, or maybe the age kind of deters some people out there. But, all right. Keep your texts coming. We'll get back to some more of these coming up a little bit later on here. We'll talk a little green and gold coming up next hour. We'll hit that up. And we got a business of sports. We'll hit that up at 8:05. Don't forget stock reports. Whose stock is up and whose stock is down. You can play along with us. Shoot those on over through that texting line there. 715-830-1912. Your thoughts on the Bucks hiring Doc Rivers, firing their head coach in his first year, and looks like they're bringing in Doc Rivers. If you're not a Doc Rivers fan, I want you to give me a name. If you don't think Doc Rivers is the guy, if you don't think he's the answer for this, then give me a name who's available right now, because you can't say Eric Spoelstra. That ain't happening. Can't say Ty Lue. You already got a job. So give me a name. Give me a coach that you would rather have over Doc Rivers right now at this point in time, who's realistically available. Not Phil Jackson. Okay, you just can't say, well, you're not coaching. Phil Jackson ain't coming. I'm just Pat Riley, throwing those guys out. That ain't happening. Not happening. So who would you like if you're not a Doc Rivers guy? if you're not a Doc Rivers guy, or you don't think Doc Rivers is the right hire at this point in time. We'll get to some of your picks throughout the morning here too. Badgers also picking up a win last night, squeaking out a W at the barn against the Gophers. Badgers remaining in first place in the Big Ten Conference. Greg Gard getting his 100th career Big Ten win last night. So congratulations to Coach Gard. Coach Gard's been on our program a few times in the past there. So Greg Gard getting his 100th career Big Ten win and helping the Badgers remain in first place in the Big Ten Conference. So next up for the Badger basketball team, it's going to be Michigan State on Friday. So Michigan State will be coming to the Kohl Center on Friday. Earlier this season, so we know Wisconsin went into Michigan State and came away with a W during that stretch where they had Marquette, Michigan State, and then Arizona. I think a lot of people are kind of focusing on that February 4th, that Sunday, February 4th game right now. Purdue coming over to Wisconsin. But you got Michigan State and Nebraska before that. Got to take care of business with those games before you can focus on Purdue over there. Badgers improving to, what just happened there? 15-4 on the season. All right. She's a hot one in here, Morgs.
Ooh, you and everyone else. It's toasty around the studios today. But where do you fall on it? Like, does it make your mad face into like the 5 out of 5 stars range? Because some people are just cranky about it.
I hate this.
Do you?
I am a cold person.
Would you rather you'd rather have the heaters broken in the other direction where they weren't kicking on at all versus overcorrecting?
Yes. I feel like Ace Ventura when nature calls and he's in the rhino.
Yeah. You're going to have
taking
to
the tighty
come out the other
off
end.
And all that. You know,
all right.
That's what it feels like right now.
Well, if you need to strip down, just wait till I'm out of here and I'll understand. I'll put a note. I'll put a do not disturb on your door. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So how surprised were you by the announcement? Coach is out. Where were you? Was it up there?
I was surprised.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you like the pick for Doc or do you want to go another direction?
Well, I think I was surprised it actually happened. Doc, I get it. And I know a lot of people don't like the pick, but I guess my counter argument to that would be who is realistically available at this point in time, halfway through the season.
Yeah.
It may not be the best pick.
But then needs to be somebody that knows defense, coach.
But somebody needs to come in.
Yeah.
And I just, who is that guy right now that's realistically available?
So low grade surprise.
Yeah.
So
I'm more surprised that they actually did it.
If you're looking back at the history, we're gonna make a file called Sports Surprises in History. Okay. Obviously, Miracle on Ice is in there. What other big sport? And this can be personal. It doesn't have to be the big sweeping Miracle on Ice things. But are there any personal sports surprises that you would put into that file that still kind of like resonate and linger in the memory of Dan Kasper, either growing up, sports surprises, or just overarchingly looking back at sports history?
Probably Favre to the Vikings.
Yeah, that was kind of a kicker. Yeah.
That's probably the first one that came to mind there.
Because, like, what about
Bucks actually winning a championship? I mean, a good surprise.
Yeah, good surprise. I think they can go in either direction. Obviously, U.S. winning on the ice.
It didn't happen, but maybe Brewers winning a World Series would
be
a nice surprise. Yeah.
Do you think that's in the next decade?
No.
How about your lifetime? Stretch it out long game.
I sure hope so.
So one of the list items for this, speaking of baseball, was when the New York Mets win the 1969 World Series. That was on the best sports surprise list of all time. Mm-hmm. But you got to build your personal lists here. Do you have any like high school memories? Was there any games, any moments from Medford that shine?
No. Well, I mean, the hole-in-one.
Hole-in-one's a big deal.
Yeah.
Walk us through the hole-in-one day.
I didn't see it.
Oh.
It was elevated green. Sun was in my eyes. I knew it was a good shot because I caught a glimpse of it like online.
Yeah.
And then it was a group ahead of us up top that yelled a hole-in-one. That's how we knew. So
that's a pretty big deal.
Aaron just got one. Rogers.
What?
On Saturday.
Okay.
He posted about it on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, because he's not posting about football these days. He's,
right.
Yeah. Do you think he's coming back stronger next year, or what do you think's going to happen with that if he's already on the golf course? And
he'll come back, but
you think?
I don't think he ain't going to win MVP or anything like that. So he's playing, but
you think he's going to?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
No, You're a Rocky guy, but what about Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson? That was on the list, the 1990 KO.
I was 4 years old.
Well, if you footage, man, footage.
I do remember watching the bite.
Yeah,
Right,
did you?
left.
That's
Take
a
another bite.
surprise. You
Yeah.
don't often expect somebody to lose an ear during a fight.
Probably, more personal too. My first favorite player of all time, Shaq.
Yep.
And I had a Shaq birthday party. The next day I listened on the radio. He went to the Lakers.
Ah, I see.
My first heartbreak as a kid. So.
And you haven't let it go. It's affecting you, man.
Second hour kicking off on this Making the Turn Wednesday. Appreciate you all tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from. We've got more Bucks and Brewers chat. Bucks firing their head coach as Doc Rivers on his way to save the day. Got a new first baseman, maybe more so DH with the Brewers. Brewers shelling out some money, 2 years, $34 million for Rhys Hoskins. A lot of you excited about that move. Maybe you're just more excited that the Brewers actually spent some money over there. We'll get to a business of sports coming up in about an hour. Stock reports are also due. Whose stock is rising? Whose stock is falling? You can hit us up, play along with us on that texting line, Shoe Doctors Bullpen line, 715-830-1912. Let's do some sports nuggets of the day. 1947. NFL owners voted to allow a sudden death overtime in playoff games. The rule wasn't used, though, until 1958. 1955, the Rules Committee of Major League Baseball announced a plan to strictly enforce the rule that required a pitcher to release the ball within 20 seconds after taking his position on the mound. 1964, CBS acquired the rights to televise the National Football League's 1964-1965 regular season. The move cost CBS at that time $14.1 million a year. 1982, the San Francisco 49ers won their first Super Bowl. Joe Montana won the first of his 3 MVP awards. Then we've got Mario Lemieux in 2006 retired from playing in the NHL for the last time. He had previously retired and came back from cancer, a heart problem, agonizing back pain, a rare bone infection, a self-imposed one-season layoff, and 5 years earlier from the boredom of retirement. Brett Favre, who? That's that. There you go. Mario Lemieux's got it all covered right there, man. Holy moly. So those are some of your sports nuggets for this morning. A couple more texts coming in here. This is from Ben. Ben saying, I'm not that high on Doc Rivers, but like you said, who else is realistically available right now to coach the Milwaukee Bucks? Question here, what about Yelich at first? Well, remember, Matt Arnold downplayed that at winter meetings. Matt Arnold already came out, the Brewers general manager, and said that's not happening. So he said that Yelich will continue to play in the outfield and logging some at-bats at the DH position. So, Lucas, were you mildly surprised that they actually fired Ethan Griffin already at this point in time?
Mildly surprised is probably the best way to put it.
I was more surprised they actually did it.
Yeah. When I had that, I had the reaction of, whoa, like I was at the dental office and I was surrounded by people who I'm not entirely sure. It's not a knock on them, but just based on how we all live our lives, I'm not sure how many people even knew the Bucks had won a championship 3 years ago. So if I was all like, dude, everyone, they just fired, they'd be like, what? Who? So I'd have to keep it to myself, but I would have had that reaction. It reminded me of when I saw the Bud news. And I remember where I was sitting when I saw that notification, but that was less surprising.
Mm-hmm.
This was more so that they did it this early. I thought the Griffin stuff had kind of quieted down to the point where, he'll survive the rest of the season. They're not going to fire him at 43 games. So yeah. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, like you said, I was more surprised that they actually kind of did it.
Yeah.
Now, you could go through the different things. Is that front office admitting they made a mistake? I mean, there was talk that this was Giannis's guy. That sort of stuff. We kind of highlighted all in the first hour, and then the news that Doc Rivers is probably going to be the guy. Magic Johnson already tweeted 9 hours ago. Congrats to him. So obviously Magic Johnson knows, and I know CNN Sports, I think.
CNN Sports.
Yeah, reported that. I don't know if you saw the clip. I think it was on NBA or TNT, and they had the breaking news, and they said CNN, and somebody said CNN, and then the guy corrects it, well, CNN Sports. Sort of thing. So it was like, okay. But it sure seems like it's going to be Doc Rivers.
Well,
I mean, I know people aren't high on that, but I ask, who else is realistically available that they could bring in this situation right now?
Well, right. No, that's the other thing. It goes back to the whole, like, when we talk about snubs, like, okay, yeah, if this person should have been in, who should not?
Mm-hmm.
And then people get pretty quiet when you start to get to that point. I was surprised how roundly, okay, maybe this is Twitter world, but how roundly negative the Doc Rivers news was received.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting that. I mean, like all the Bucs fans were like, "Oh no!" Like you almost wonder if they would rather keep Adrian Griffin. Like, is this a downgrade? And all the non-Bucs fans are like, "Yep, here we go, championship. Bucs are out." Like, oh, okay, so are we really going with this? The 3-1 thing was cited so much yesterday afternoon online. I'd say it was probably about 90-10. Bucs are making a big mistake with Doc Rivers. But yeah, that's the other point. So is John Prunty supposed to be the guy?
Yeah, and then I know it was Chris Haynes that mentioned 2 other names: Jeff Van Gundy, who hasn't coached since when, and then Nate McMillan. And Nate McMillan doesn't really move the needle for me.
No, I mean, the other thing is, and I've seen all sorts of takes, so they're all kind of getting in my brain of who to cite, and was this just an amalgamation? Now they've got probably a basically competent coach with a fairly loaded roster outside of, wing defense. Okay, but you upgrade the coach from does he have any clue what he's doing to he basically knows what he's doing, and he has won a championship. Well, that should vault the Bucs towards the top, the absolute top of the league. Again, they may not catch the Celtics for record reasons because of the strength of schedule, but I think they're going to be better. And let's not all presume. I mean, yes, let's already be ready. If the Bucs are up 3 games to 1 in the playoffs, you're going to get so many memes for like 48 hours. Just brace yourself, folks. And the Bucs will end up winning that series. It's just how it's going to go.
And I feel like this move too, again, because who else is out there? But also, Doc has a ton of experience coaching superstars. And when it comes to superstars, you got a bunch of personalities on there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ray Allen, Garnett, Paul Pierce, Rajon Rondo, Clippers, Paul and all that. And then 76ers last year with Harden and Embiid and such. So I think that also factored in his decision to bring in Doc, is because he has that experience with dealing with superstars and multiple superstars on your team.
Yeah.
So, is it a long-term one? I think it remains to be seen after this year.
Yeah, like I don't think he's going to be fired mid-year next year if they're struggling, which by struggling, I mean like their record is actually mediocre versus all this apparent internal reasoning for getting rid of Griffin. I think Rivers has about a year and a half at least. He could be longer. I mean, if they do end up winning the championship, then I guess it depends on how long he wants to stay at that point. I don't think he's going to be falling apart anytime soon. I'd like the Bucs floor is higher now with Doc Rivers. There, you could make the case that they could fall down to like what do you think the floor could have been had they not stopped with Griffin and they had a problem here and a problem there, and you got the teams behind you that are
4th or 5th?
Yes, probably. I don't think they're a 4th or 5th seed under Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
Really under any circumstance.
Yeah, because, I mean, you have Cleveland playing better. We'll see how, I mean, Indiana with the Pascal Siakam trade, could they climb up there? I don't know. But, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
So then that's good. I mean, you got to think of seeding. 2 versus 3 is going to make a big difference. 3 versus 4 make a big difference. So if it helps, avoid Boston as long as possible, as I keep saying, and that's going to be a thing. Even now, hey, they've lost their perfect, but they lost to the Nuggets barely. Tatum barely missed a game.
Do you think the main thing too, also with bringing in a guy like Doc, is that it commands respect in the locker room a little bit more?
Yes.
You bring in a first-year guy, Adrian Griffin. Is it the inmates running the asylum? Yeah, that phrase where the players. I mean, I know there was a video going around the other day of like Giannis was drawing up plays, on that, and like people are like, well, now we know why, because Giannis is even drawing up the plays and that. I think there is that immediate respect in the locker room where, like, if there was a little bit of like, okay, players going over the coach's head, I think that stops at least right now with Doc walking in there.
Well, that makes the most amount of sense. Why the lack of respect for Adrian Griffin makes the most amount of sense for why you would make this change now. If he's still struggling to learn, but it looks like he's moving in the right direction. I know you don't want to do on-the-job training when you're the head coach of one of the top teams in the NBA, but if it looks like he's going to get there, then you hold. And in fact, I think that's what Doc Rivers was saying on the Bill Simmons podcast. that they're going to figure this out as time goes along. Gosh, though, it's weird thinking that all these Doc Rivers quotes about the Bucks, and now he's the coach of the Bucks.
I'll play a devil's advocate on that. Was he saying that stuff because, according to reports, he was also kind of mentoring Adrian Griffin? Like the Bucks reached out to him and said, "Hey, can you kind of help him out and be a sounding board for him?" So was that almost positive reinforcement by coming out and publicly saying that, knowing behind the scenes he was actually trying to help out Adrian Griffin?
Yeah, that just make me wonder why if that's the case, that could explain why he was so high on the Bucks. Because otherwise, because again, if anyone's not putting 2 and 2 together here, then if he agrees with Bill, who was saying, I don't know about the Bucks. I don't think they're much of a title contender as great as they are. And he said, I think you're right. Well, then what is the reverberation?
And then an hour later, you're on a phone call with Adrian Griffin trying to help him out. Like, what does that say?
What are you saying, man? Like, okay. And then that spreads around even further. I think that's a legitimate point if that's the case. I mean, it takes a few steps to get there, but you can connect the steps.
You think they regret? You think they regret not hiring Nick Nurse?
Yes,
I think so too.
I know Nurse wasn't doing that great with the Raptors, so it's not like you have. He is an Eric Spoelstra, but man, that's working well in Philadelphia. And so, Giannis, what's the deal? So you wanted Adrian Griffin, you didn't want Nick Nurse. Not that he was anti-Nurse, but you wanted Griffin, and then you let Nurse go, and now we let Griffin go. And
yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to read some of the other stuff out there. I know there was one article that talked about, when they were looking at Adrian Griffin, when they were hiring him, they weren't sure at the time if Brook Lopez was going to be back because Houston was courting him so much. They weren't sure about Middleton. Giannis, extension wasn't done yet. So there was some talk like they were thinking, okay, maybe we're going to have to take a step back in this season. And that was one of the things with Adrian Griffin. Remember when he first hired, one of the positives was that he connects with players, especially younger players. And that was kind of some of the talks like, okay, maybe this helps a guy like Marjon Beauchamp, Andre Jackson Jr., these rookies. Well, then what happened a week or two before the season starts? You trade for Damian Lillard. You end up bringing back Brook Lopez. Chris Middleton's got a new deal. Giannis signs an extension. And it was, as Adrian Wojnarowski, I think, had in his article on ESPN.com, said that John Horst thinks he's going to be eventually a really good head coach, but that timeline changed. When you make a move for a Dame and you sign those veterans, aging veterans, it does change a little bit. It does change a little bit, but it's like, again, it's who do you kind of put most of the fault on? If that was Giannis's guy, is it more Giannis? Is it still more the front office? I don't know. I don't know at this point. It's interesting.
That was it's disconnect there. Like what? Gosh, I'm glad the Bucks won a title, so it wouldn't be what would have been a very ongoing. Does the Bucks upper management from front office, GM to ownership really, really know what they're doing? Because that was the knock on the Bucks for a while until they won the championship, and that washed away a lot of that. And it's not all back now as a result, but between the whole process that led to Horst's hiring, questions over coach, there's been a lot of with the Bucks, but it's just enough has worked out. Maybe this one does too. I mean, at first blush, you could see where, we're back to that, but maybe it does work. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, again, with their floor being higher, I think they've got a better chance of winning the finals as a result of having Doc Rivers. This is not a downgrade. They shouldn't have kept Adrian Griffin. They are better as a result of having Doc Rivers.
I guess at one point, not to praise firings of anybody at any level, but as a fan, are you appreciative that your team is, because it's very evident they're really trying to do the best they can to win a title, right? That they're trying to make these decisions that they feel like is going to help them win a title. So as a fan, are you appreciative that a team is willing to do this? Because they're going to have to pay 3 head coaches this year.
Yeah. Not a ton. This isn't exactly Texas A&M territory, but
but
are
still paying Budenholzer. They got to pay off Adrian Griffin's contract. He didn't even get through 1 year, and then whoever they hired, which might be Doc Rivers.
Yeah. It's
and they're already in luxury tax for players and such. So Aaron Rodgers might have to put a little bit more 1% in, maybe 2% now.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe that's why Jimmy Haslam's here. He's got pockets full of cash.
That's what he brought in. I mean, well, and hey, maybe Wes Edens can use the value that I've talked about from Aston Villa and put that to good use too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you see the Sean Payton analogy?
I did not.
Doc Rivers is basically Sean Payton.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy. I was trying to come up with one with Doc. I like that one.
Yeah, and it was not really in a positive sense either.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally get it. Yep.
Brandon Berg was not the guy writing that either.
Okay.
But I mean, one victory, thought of fairly highly, but can't ever quite get over the hump. But the rep is still there, and there were a couple other things that made perfect sense. You're like, oh, he is Sean Payton.
I think it was Gilbert Arenas said that Doc is in a no win-win situation if he takes his Bucs job. Because if they win, he won't get the credit because it's all the players. Mm-hmm. But if they lose, he'll get all the blame for it.
Yeah.
Because it's, look at how many, like a lot of people have said, look at how many teams of talented players he's had, and he's won one championship.
I do think Giannis is going to get more blame, though, because there's going to be a lot of connections back to he wants Adrian Griffin thing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially.
Kind of similar to LeBron a little bit. Remember back in the day he was like that?
A little bit. Especially if, okay, what if the Philadelphia 76ers win the NBA championship this year?
Yeah.
And the Bucks go out in like the first or second round. Oh, and especially if it's Sixers over Bucks, like 4-1. Mm-hmm. And it's very clear that Nick Nurse is out coaching Doc Rivers. I think that's a specific circumstance, but I think Giannis gets more criticism under that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, see, you're okay.
Stay out of front office decisions.
Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, Bucks needed to keep Giannis.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for the Brian Windhorst putting 3 and 3 and 3 together thing of how if the Bucks don't win a title this year with Doc Rivers, he and Dame are going to demand a trade.
How much do you think the Bucks? I mean, it's a hindsight 2020, and I know you can kind of look at the results of what their team's doing right now. But from all indications and from what we said, do you think they regret maybe not moving on from Budenholzer a year earlier and just promoting Darvin Ham?
Maybe. I mean, I know there's that little bit of stuff that was happening in LA.
Because what was it last year? Was it Portis or somebody said after the postseason exit, what was missing? And they said Darvin Ham. Like the players love Darvin Ham.
Well, and also just because the Lakers have been complaining about like rotations and such, maybe that's LeBron is complaining about rotations and such. That could be to that particular one player or one group of players that would not necessarily apply to the Bucks.
Right.
So, yeah, I possibly, but I don't. Are they that much better? I mean, I think it might almost be a wash with Ham or Rivers. I don't know. I'm not convinced. As much as I'm convinced that Nurse was probably the right move ultimately. I'm not as convinced of Ham, but that's more because I've not seen that much with the Lakers, despite their run late last season when they were legitimately good. Well, now they're regressing again. So I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but I'm not saying he's Eric Spoelstra either.
Do they regret Budenholzer? Firing Budenholzer?
No,
I don't think they do.
That
either.
had to happen.
Yeah,
his scheming wasn't working. They weren't improving. That had to go. It's just the other decision was the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So Doc getting back to Milwaukee, the former Marquette. Can we call him Marquette great?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I counted.
All right. So back
playing
to Milwaukee.
The coming home music.
Yeah. So I think it's I don't know. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I agree with you. I do think they're better. I just don't know if it's enough. I don't know if they're going to overtake like the Celtics yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know about this. I'm sure you heard it, the Dejounte Murray trade rumors.
No.
So was it Chris Haynes, I believe on his podcast or on a podcast a couple days ago, said that the Bucks are kind of as aggressive as you can be, making phone calls and that. But apparently one person that they're checking in and very, very interested in is Murray from Atlanta. But the Hawks apparently are looking for 2 first-round picks and a player that can help the team now. And the speculation is maybe a guy like Bobby Portis.
Would you make that trade?
I mean, I'm paying. Now if you bring in Murray, who's averaging career highs in points, 21 points a game, then I start to worry: is there enough ball to go around at that point?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have to worry about with Portis, because if you're bringing in Murray, that means Malik Beasley goes to the bench, and then you got him coming off the bench. I don't know if I make that move. I think Portis is such a valuable contributor coming off the bench. If you bring in Murray, that's a great video game starting five. I worry then, do you start to like, oh crap, do we have enough ball to go around at that point?
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you can utilize him the best way possible. So I'm inclined to not make that move.
And he's already under contract for the next few years. You're talking like $20-some million a year. Where the heck are they going to get that cash flow?
Don't know.
So
I wouldn't do it.
I guess never say never, but I would be shocked if they were able to get that thing done.
Yeah.
They don't have any picks, in the immediate future, first round picks.
No, that's the other thing. When you mentioned the picks, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You think I'd have anyone left? They're just going to skip the draft for like 5-6 years or so? Like,
they're so hamstrung. When we were looking at this, there's even talk like they might not even be able to be active in the buyout market. Because there was some talk about like maybe PJ Tucker being a buyout option. First of all, I didn't realize he was 38 years old already. But then there was like, yeah, Bucks don't really have a whole lot for buyout market either. I'm like, geez,
yes.
They're really hamstrung right now.
Well, that's also what happens though if you're going to try to keep your team together, and that you have a generational player and one of the all-time top players. You kind of have to ride with what you got at a certain point. You can't keep building and building and building. And
right.
The NBA is going to make this tougher and tougher going forward. It's still not really kicked in yet, the whole second apron thing, but that's coming very fast where you're not going to be able to do anything more. So the situation will not improve going forward. I think you kind of have to go with who you've got. And maybe that was ultimately the reason you get Doc Rivers. Go full circle on this. That A, yeah, he's the best available, but B, he's good with a veteran team where you can't make too many alterations. So you go with your talent, try to win that way, which is what the Bucks essentially were going to do in the first place. And there was a very good case to make that was going to be enough to get you to the NBA Finals. So if you've now upgraded your coach, well, that's from a coach who turned out to be more of a downgrade than anyone imagined. You should be okay this year.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll get back to some more baseball talk as well. Brewers actually making a move. So it was a big day in Milwaukee yesterday. We'll hit that up again coming up in just a couple minutes. Again, apologies. If you can hear something in the background that sounds like a fan, it's because it is a fan, because we got 2 of them going on, because it is hot in here. It is hot in here. Might be pulling the Ace Ventura when nature calls in the Rhino, taking the clothes off. Just saying.
It's a good thing I'm not in your studio.
Exactly. Yep.
I mean, it's hot in this studio too.
But you can at least have the door open. There's a sign on mine that says it can't be open. So
I know, because like what would exactly happen if you open up the door?
I have no idea, but I'm going to text our engineers and say, hey, can I open this, please? Because it's a small space, no windows for the outside world. And, the soundproof, the foam is just like insulating everything. So it's roasty. I could probably cook a brat right now. It's like those when you're in school and you have to make those solar ovens.
Yeah.
That's what it's like in here right now.
That makes me want brats now.
Yeah, right?
Hey, you should have a cookout here. Let's take advantage of this.
Well, probably could. So, but yeah, if you hear a little hum, I apologize, but I ain't shutting that off because I need it on right now because I am sweating a little bit. So,
yeah,
sweaty. So,
sweaty.
All right. Let's continue to, or I should say, let's get back to a little baseball talk here. So the Brewers actually made a free agent signing. They actually spent some money, 2 years, $34 million for Rhys Hoskins. Jeff Passan saying it is, there is an opt-out after the first year there, but he missed last year, ACL tear in spring training, but the year prior, 30 home runs. He's a slugger. The deal with this is that, first of all, he's not a very good defender, which goes against what Matt Arnold said last year about the Brewers right before the trade deadline, right? He said, we're not sacrificing defense, for offense. I don't know if he had a change of heart or, we're focusing a lot on he's a first baseman. I feel like maybe this is more of a DH type of signing. You plug him in at DH. If you're still focusing on defense, maybe he gets more at bats at DH than playing over at first base.
Yeah.
So
he's going to be, solid offensively. I'm looking through Adam McCalvy's story, and there's lots of stats, obviously, in here.
5 home runs in 9 career games at AmFam Field. So,
yeah, ranked in the 70th percentile or higher in almost every offensive category 2 years ago when he was still playing, able to play. He's good against lefties, which has not been much of a thing for the Brewers. So he can do that. It's an upgrade for sure. I was again, if you use the what's your gut reaction when you saw the notification? We're like, oh, cool, they got Rhys Hoskins. I thought fairly highly of him when he was with Philadelphia.
And it seems like Brewers fans are pumped, at least the ones that are chiming in with us on social media and that.
I mean, it's definitely better than, they brought in this guy that had a 8.32 ERA. Welcome to Milwaukee. Those Instagram posts are like, and it gets all the eye roll emojis.
Right.
No, this is a legitimate move. I was like, this because of the timing. I was like, is this a mini version of what we saw 6 years ago? Like in mid-January, what are the Brewers going to visit? Whoa, they brought in Yelich.
And then Kane and all that.
Right, and it's not that, but it reminded me of the timing of waiting. Also, I wonder, when Amazon a week ago bought into Diamond Sports.
We're going to revisit that, by the way, at top of the hour.
Yeah. Okay, so that might tie into this, the notion of, is there more money to go around? That was speculated. I can't remember who was doing the speculating, but it was someone who follows sports media, et cetera, saying, or covers it, saying this could lead, or maybe it was a baseball writer saying this could allow those smaller markets to go, we are going to get some cash after all. And that could accelerate some of the signings. I can't exactly say that this is correlation equals causation. This could have been happening regardless, but 34 mil total. I mean, because if he opts in, well, you got to have the money to pay him too. I wonder if that's part of this, where the Brewers finally had some more money. If you see a team like the real obvious one will be if the Twins, after announcing their payroll cut.
And then they reverse.
Yeah, and they start to, I mean, they're not going to get big ones at this point, but if they start to get like, oh, wow, then you know that this Amazon thing really made a difference.
Yep. I still think, if it is DH, if that's going to be his primary role, spit it out, Dan. They probably still need to go out there and get another first. I know they got Owen Miller on the roster yet, and he's had some success, playing a lot of first base over at Cleveland, but got to wonder if they'd still be targeting another first base. Tyler Black just came out with he just was on the top 10 list for third base prospects. I know he's been talked about as a guy that maybe can log some, move over to first base, even second base. Brandon's talked about that. So I wouldn't be surprised though if they bring in another defensive first baseman, if you will.
Yeah, probably. And again, just to spell when Hoskins goes to DH, yeah, exactly. It'll be a bit of a round robin. They have probably the most solidified first base situation that they've had in a while now. So that's good. Even with again, it's like a poor man's Dame Lillard situation. Bringing a guy really good with offense, not that good with defense, and you're going down. Not that he's replacing someone at first base that the Brewers had, who was their Drew Holiday, but all in all, they're shoring up their overall infield with this. Regardless of the defensive aspect, it's more of a lineup thing, and that's good for. Given the occasional offensive struggles of the Brewers, which again that's an overrated thing. There have been certain times their offense has actually been pretty good over the past couple of years, but they need someone like Hoskins, and that's a plus.
They needed this last year, so
yeah, they really, especially last year.
Yeah.
So this is going to be better.
Speaking of baseball, again, Hall of Fame class, 3 new members. Well, I should say 4 because Jim Leland got in earlier. But Adrian Beltre, the longtime consistent third baseman, getting 95% of the votes. He's in. First ballot, Joe Mauer squeaking in. He gets in there. And then Todd Helton also getting in. Billy Wagner. I was going to say Bobby Wagner. Wagner just missing out. 73.6%, I believe, off the top of my head, was the votes over there. So
well, all those Joe Mauer t-shirts that all the 20-something women that were wearing back in the aughts and 2010s.
That was my college heyday. I saw lots of them.
Oh, my gosh. That was the most worn piece of Twins paraphernalia from about 2006 to maybe 2012, 2013. My gosh, there were so many of those Navy Joe Ryan
going out on Water Street in college. Oh yeah,
yep. All the Minnesota folks that are coming over here, and they're all wearing the Joe Mauer t-shirts. I'm glad he got in. I cannot find the stat, and I just read it, so I'm going to paraphrase this unless it happens to suddenly appear. That now St. Paul has is it like the second most Hall of Famers for an individual city? And it's like right up there with like Los Angeles, San Francisco, I think New York. And the only one that I think has more is Mobile, Alabama.
So I found this. 4th son of the city to be elected to the Hall. Paul Molitor being one. Dave Winfield. Jack
Morris, yeah.
In there.
A few years ago. And so now Joe Mauer. And a lot of those are Cretin-Durham Hall ones, which how many high schools have particularly resulted in a Hall of Famer? I got to see a stat on that, but I got to imagine Cretin-Durham Hall is way, way up there. I don't think we have any St. Paulians that are in line right now.
Yeah, he says, it says here he will soon join fellow Cretin-Durham Hall alum Paul Molitor. Yep. Central's Dave Winfield and Highland Park's Jack Morris. So,
so St. Paul, again, it's like them and like that place in Mobile. Would you necessarily expect it? I mean, yes, it makes sense, but you at first blush, you'd think they wouldn't be anywhere close to
I was going to say, what you were going to say another city? I thought it was going to be somewhere in Texas.
It's not yet. Now, the other thing with Texas is
it's wide open. And
there's so many places. I mean, how many times you hear, this guy's from
Clayton Kershaw and Matthew Stafford went to the same high school in Texas.
See, now, but they're different sports.
Right. But no, I was just having fun with that because every time you hear that,
oh yeah,
it's like always brought up Kershaw and Stafford, BFFs.
Will they go into their respective Hall of Fames in the same year?
That's a good question. No, I think Kershaw, I think he might be calling it a career before Stafford does. Is it baseball? Do you have to wait 5 years?
Both.
Is it both? Okay, I knew football was 5.
Yeah.
I think Stafford's gonna play a little longer.
I can never really tell with them. Like if both of them retired after like next year, would not shock me. I don't think they're gonna like twin it and plan this accordingly, but I would not be.
I mean, Kershaw's still a free agent right now, right?
Yeah, I keep expecting Kershaw to do something, and then he doesn't, and he keeps running it back with the Dodgers. I think Stafford goes longer than Kershaw, I agree, but I can't guarantee it. On the Joe Mauer shirt thing, the funny thing is just where my Twitter feed is. I went to one of the Twins fans I follow that posts a lot of like older Twins stuff. They showed a Justin Morneau home run because they're referencing 4 years ago. This date is when he went into the Twins Hall of Fame, and where the ball hits in the upper deck of the Metrodome, there's a guy like 3 rows down wearing a navy blue Joe Mauer t-shirt, the one we were just talking about. It's right in the shot, and it's a guy too.
Yeah.
That had to have been like a 90-10 ratio. I'm using my 90-10 again, but it has to have been a 90-10 ratio of girls to guys wearing Joe.
100%. Mauer and Morneau, that trend was like, oh, okay.
I mean, I get it. I know why that was happening. This won't happen, but it would be so funny. Maybe not at Cooperstown, but when the Twins inevitably have a ceremony this year, that if the Twins gave those away, especially like, or encourage anyone, hey, if you still have your t-shirt, wear it to the game, and then it's all Joe Mauer t-shirts.
Right.
I mean, I did, it's for older shirts, but that'd be great to see.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'm glad he got in on the first ballot. Do you think Gary Sheffield will eventually?
He's trending upward, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's out of now.
Is he out of options though?
Yep. He's got to wait for a committee.
I think he gets in committee wise.
Yeah.
I do.
Should he have?
Do you think Andrew Jones gets in eventually?
Yes,
I do too.
He's on the right path. I think Wagner gets the extra 5 votes next year. I think he gets in.
Who are the first ballots next year? Do you know off the top of your head?
Ichiro Suzuki's the obvious one. Will he be unanimous? Is really the question.
I was just going to ask that.
I don't know. I mean, Adrian Beltre was making a case for it, and it didn't happen.
What you think about how many years now we were talking about like Adrian Beltre? I don't think we would have said Adrian Beltre would have made a case 10 years ago.
No,
it's like finally Rivera did it, so it's like okay to have a perfect.
Right. It gives us the whole, well, if Willie Mays couldn't do it and Babe Ruth couldn't do it, then I mean, so
CeCe's on there.
CeCe Sabathia for next. Yeah, those are the two. Sabathia is going to be an interesting case. So I'd have to bring up the ESPN story, but there was one about how Sabathia's entrance could say something about where the next wave of pitchers is going to go based on what he's done. And of course he has, 250 wins, 3,000 strikeouts. One of the last to have that. I don't think any of the other first timers are getting in. Then 2 years from now, it's Ryan Braun. Nope.
He got his honor.
Yeah, I noticed the timing on that. Like, okay, cool. Cole Hamels in 2026. I don't think he gets in as a first timer. A year after that is Buster Posey. I think so.
Yep. Be the fourth catcher on a first ballot.
I think he can make a pretty good case for it. They do feel pretty. I mean, they're not comps, but there's a similarity there. And John Lesta is on that one. I'm going with the obvious choices. And then 2028, Pujols and Molina.
Okay, yeah.
Yadier,
yeah,
of course. And then Miguel Cabrera in 2029. I'm going to the MLB one.
Those are easy ones.
Yeah, and a few others here and there, but all the other notable first-timers, some of them are going to have to make some pretty good cases because a lot of them are not going to get in.
This makes me feel really old. He's a first ballot next year. I still feel like he's in his 20s. Felix Hernandez.
I know.
I still feel like he's in his 20s pitching with the Mariners right now.
Well, and some of those that fell off this year, like I saw like James Shields and such. I'm like, wasn't that long ago I was hearing about his acquisitions. He's up for the Hall of Fame now?
Right.
That it's picking up pretty quickly because Curtis Granderson, Felix Hernandez, Ian Kinsler, Dustin Pedroia, finally. I think Pedroia seemed more like a potential Hall of Fame candidate, and now I think he might stick around a bit. Hanley Ramirez, Troy Tulowitzki. There's another one.
Hanley Ramirez. Wow. Hanley. Yeah, man.
Ben Zobrist. And then the year after that, and I'm not going to go too much further because then that kind of defeats the purpose, but Edwin Encarnacion, Shin-Soo Choo, Hunter Pence, Nick Markakis, Matt Kemp. Feels like Matt Kemp has been playing for like 50 years.
No kidding.
And Alex Gordon.
Didn't he just get traded with another package of players?
I think so. And somehow he's going to keep playing for the A's or the Dodgers. Like that's like every other year. Jordan Zimmerman will be up in 2027. Just keep that in the back of your mind. I don't think he's getting in, but his name will come up in 3 years.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we got stocks due. So whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling? We'll make our picks. You can play along with us, make your picks as well. Hit us up with a text. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Stock reports. Let's get to it because we're on time before the top of the hour here. Stock risers. Who do you got there, Lucas?
Oh boy, this is actually a bit of a struggle this week. So I'm gonna go with like a very Captain Obvious one. I'm just gonna say Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
Great performance finally in a playoff game.
Please, for love, beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Beat them. Beat them hard.
Are you saying that for Lamar's sake, or are you saying that because you don't want to deal with the amounts of hype, the likes of which we have not fathomed going into a Taylor Swift, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce-led Super Bowl in Las Vegas?
I'd like to answer that in a strictly professional football sense, but it is option B 100%.
Yeah. I know. You think
I'm sorry to be that guy, but I just know.
Are we going to be conspiracy guy now, right? And say the refs are totally gonna start making up calls to make sure the Chiefs win?
No.
I mean, they're not gonna do that. Also, I think the Ravens are going to beat the Chiefs. I'll just say it right now. I'm sorry I didn't make my picks last week, but I will say right now, Ravens are beating the Chiefs.
Okay, good.
And that's, I know it's going to be easy to say, well, see, now Lamar proved that he could. Look, Lamar Jackson could have done this at a whole lot of other circumstances. It didn't happen. I still think it was a small enough sample size as other playoff games. And we now saw him do everything that we think Lamar Jackson could do. He did it in that game. Good. And his attitude is still like, I got more to do.
Should be.
This is different for him.
Yep.
And I like it. I appreciate it. And it feels like the Ravens and Lamar Jackson have done more, like in the playoffs. Like when find out that it's the first conference championship game for the Ravens in 11 years. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's been that long. So yeah, definite stock riser.
Their stock has been high for a while now, but time to give them a little love. Mike Hastings and the job he has done with Badger men's hockey this year.
Yes.
After what happened last year, I think we all thought it was a good hire bringing him in. I don't think anybody expected this in year one. I know we've talked about it with RJ quite a bit. It has definitely exceeded expectations. Right now, they're ranked third. They were at one point ranked first. They even got a vote for number one over there. But you're talking national title contenders for this year. He has done a hell of a job with that program. So their stock has been up throughout the year. But let's give them a little love on stock risers.
Yeah, very much in agreement on that for sure. I see that. Yeah, I saw a recent rundown of like what to expect in like going forward in college hockey, assessment of the season right now. Notice I always have to give it a bit of a Northeastern accent when I say college hockey. The reality is the two Boston schools, North Dakota and Denver, are going to be tough to pass, even with Wisconsin being as high as they are. But Wisconsin was getting a lot of praise in that article as well, as like they are going to be a very tough out come tournament time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, stock fallers.
The NBA refs.
Okay. Are you going with the Wolves and Hornets thing?
And the Blazers thing last night. I probably wouldn't have done it just on the Wolves Hornets thing, but though 10 missed calls, 2 fouls you could have called on one drive. What? And okay, because I think I'm contractually obligated to do this. The Wolves still shouldn't have blown an 18-point lead and be in the position against a team as decrepit as the Hornets at home. But 10? Why do you suck that bad? And I'm not a ref suck type. That sucks.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be that bad at an NBA level. You should be in the G League at that point. What was going on there? And then whatever is going on to lead the Blazers to actually protest the loss, involving timeouts and everything. Like, come on, guys. I guess the good news is it's January and the white hot heat of the playoffs isn't there. But if this is happening in mid-May, oh my gosh, we got a problem. Now I know the worst ones are not going to be even coached or reffing anyway, but
I do appreciate the NBA though. Like when you do protest a game, they actually take it serious and they will redo it. That part. Remember a few years ago with the Heat?
Yeah.
It was a Shaq thing, and then Shaq ended up getting traded, so he wasn't even in the last makeup minute of it or something like that.
Yeah. So and I don't know if they will in the Blazers Thunder situation, but I also appreciate that they are that transparent about it. I'm going to tie into the NFL where the NFL is like, well, no, this was a correct call. No, it wasn't. But no, it actually was. Like, they kind of gaslight you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA is usually pretty much like, yeah, you guys bleeped up this.
Right.
With that, the credit to the NBA for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to go stock faller here. I'm going to go a little bit with the Todd Bowles situation here. It seems like it wasn't criticized right away, but it's been garnering a little bit more steam lately. For a refresher, he didn't use his final timeouts when the Lions had it to force a field goal, and he talked about it the other day. He said he recognized that the game was over with. They were in field goal range. We'd had 12 seconds calculated after using that timeout to come back from it. Then we would have been down 11 points, so it's kind of pointless. You kind of know when the game is over, the game was over. I will say, you still potentially, we've seen some crazy stuff happen, right? You could have blocked that field goal, and something could have happened after that. I think you got to at least give it a shot. Give it a shot at that point in time. Give your players a shot to make a play. So, stock faller to me, Todd Bowles for that excuse.
Yeah.
For that reason.
I mean, is it to the point now where his job could be in trouble?
I don't think so.
I mean, I was starting to get that vibe off of this, though. Mm-hmm. I know the Good Morning Football people were like, if this were Brandon Staley, it'd be way worse.
Oh, I saw they talked about if this was Mike McCarthy, that would have been all over. Like I think Peter Schrager said, if this was the Cowboys and that same thing happened, it would have been talked about right away and still being talked about right now.
I know it actually took a little while for this to bubble up. I'm like, are we trying to find topics here? Which to a degree, we're trying to find topics here. But I mean, the sports media writ large. But I mean, I get it. Like,
did I think it was over with? Yes.
Yeah, there's realism, but also, yeah, you never know. What the Pisarcik play, for example.
Yep.
Crazy stuff does happen.
Hey, ever since we saw the miracle in with Tennessee and Buffalo, anything's possible, man. As Kevin Garnett said,
anything is possible.
You never know. So
hey, and that led to a Doc Rivers championship.
Yep.
So there you go, folks.
All right, 2 in. We got one more to go. Business of sports coming up after these quick words. All right, here we go. Third and final hour on this Making the Turn Wednesday. Keep your thoughts coming. Hit us up with some texts on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. It's always open if you want to give your thoughts on the Bucks firing Adrian Griffin. Looks like Doc Rivers will be the new head coach. I know some people said it's confirmed or reported it. Haven't seen anything official. Until I see Adrian Wojnarowski or Shams, then I'll acknowledge it. I don't know about you, Luke, but not Magic Johnson. I'm sorry, Magic.
No, I'm basically in the same.
So one thing's it seems evident from everybody. It's going to be a quick process to find a new head coach. So it will not be Joe Prunty for the long term.
It may not be Joe Prunty for a game.
So also Brewers chats. We touched on that, but if you want to give your thoughts on the Brewers' new DH/first baseman, Rhys Hoskins coming over, bringing a little bit more pop, a little bit more power to this Brewers lineup. Let us know. Get your thoughts out there. Hit us up with that text, 715-830-1912. No, I'll save this one. So let's get to a business of sports here. Couple of them I want to hit. One of them is I want to revisit because it was last week we talked about the Amazon Bally Sports Diamond Sports thing, right? It was last week. So
it broke during the show.
Yeah. So we'll follow up on that because more details with that. Before that, though, yesterday's big news. I mean, we're talking streaming and sports and all that. I know you're not, you're a diehard WWE fan there, Lucas.
Hardcore.
But big news, WWE inks a deal with Netflix for Raw starting in 2025. $5 billion media rights deal with Netflix for its weekly Raw series in a 10-year pact set to begin in the United States next January 2025. It marks what is Netflix's biggest move yet into live entertainment, giving the streaming platform with $247 million global memberships rights to a property that had been on linear TV for 31 years now. So all you Raw fans, Brandon, Justice, the rest of you.
There's a lot of them on the show.
Yeah. You want to watch it, you're going to have to subscribe to Netflix if you're not a subscriber to Netflix starting in 2025.
I will be curious to hear Brandon's take on that. Or has he already made a take? Have you been?
I have not seen or talked to him about it, so no.
That will be interesting, though.
Do you think Netflix is going to get more live sporting events, potentially?
I think so. The question, of course, becomes how big are the sporting events? Is this leading to the NFL at some point, which I think could happen if, again, the theory from last week we're talking about with Peacock, and that the second, if there is going to be a second streaming playoff game next year, it would probably be on Prime Video because so many people have that as part of Amazon Prime. Netflix seems like the next most logical choice. I can't remember off the top of my head the subscription numbers, but so many people have Netflix that there'd be less complaining there. Whereas like an Apple TV Plus, even with some really high profile shows, that doesn't feel like one that everybody has, or Paramount Plus, or even Max to a certain degree. Now, Max and Paramount Plus may join up with this apparent takeover of Paramount by Warner Brothers Discovery. So maybe that becomes something that a lot of people have. But Netflix, I think, is going to be, I mean, when Netflix has become like an adjective, I think, or I'm screw up my English terminology, but you know what I mean? When it's basically become like Kleenex. Something that refers to things that aren't even necessarily
Netflix and chill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that tells you how widespread it is. You don't have to explain to people what Netflix is. Right. So if you said, hey, the NFL's going to there's going to be a playoff game on Netflix, even if you don't have it. Oh, okay. I can subscribe to that versus the whole, what's Peacock? There's probably a lot of people who were saying that despite the 23 mil. If that game's on Netflix, it's probably 28 million. That's still 5 million more people, I'm going to guess.
It's still weird for me to say a live event on Netflix, because when I still think of Netflix, though, I think of movies and binging TV shows.
Well, that's the thing. Netflix is not known for anything live. I mean, there are live things that happen on Netflix, but that's not their reputation.
Right.
Whereas, like, say the game was on ESPN Plus, a streaming service. Well, that has live stuff all of that. That's half their content is, or half the things they promote are live events. So even Peacock kind of makes sense because it's connected to NBC. So you think of live, but Netflix would sound a little weirder, but I think it would work. I think it would work.
Yeah. So I don't know if this would open the door. I mean, do you feel like in the next 10 years, let's say, all these games, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, will eventually be off linear cable, linear TV?
Okay. Broadcast TV, no, especially now that we're seeing teams going back away from RSNs. I think I saw the stat, was it this morning or late yesterday, that one of the teams that left, was it the Suns or the Jazz or which team it was? Their ratings are up like 37% this year now that they're on broadcast TV. Now, way less revenue, but way more ratings. So if you can figure that out, if you can do that with broadcast TV, that'll stick around. But that's because that's free. As versus the cable package, that's a totally different thing. I
would like an age breakdown on all this too.
That's a big part of that too. I mean, we shouldn't presume that if just because like you're over 70, you're like, what's a streaming thing? Well, I think a lot of people have figured that out. Not nearly as many as like a 20-year-old, but it's more than we think. Like your question last week about Nick Sirianni and Mike McCarthy, and I kind of punted by saying it was more likely to be Sirianni. Narrator, it was neither. I'm going to kind of punt on this, but say broadcast TV's you're way more likely to see games in 2034 on broadcast TV than on a cable network. But that doesn't rule it out. I don't think cable's going to be gone. There's so many things we think are about to die, and they don't. Newspapers are still around.
What was it? I don't know how long ago it was. I don't know if it was recent, few months, or maybe even last year. I remember you and I had the topic about streaming, and like, would you just like almost like at any game you wanted, would you drop $1 or something like that every time? You remember that conversation?
I do the a la carte notion.
Oh, it was like the NFL Network thing, I think was, or whatever it was.
Yeah, where they were talking about the whole DirecTV package and Sunday Ticket, and could it ever get to the point where you buy them a la carte, or would you pay for your team's package, which would never happen because of we won't get into the reasons, but if you think about it, it's obvious.
Right. Do you think we'll ever get to that? Revisiting it now, how many months later? Years later? Year later?
Probably
a customized sports package.
It kind of makes sense. I think in the NFL's case, they're going to have to find a way to make a lot more money from that. Because if they did it
right, you say the NFL's got to find a way to make more money.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's what drives almost all of it. Unless again, it's something where someone has some reason that they can make a case to not do it, i.e., like I said last week, uniform ads are not happening. That's a lot of money the NFL could make, but Goodell's actually decided it's better to not do that, and you can make a case for that. In a case like this, I think it's more direct dollars. That, yeah, you could make more money from individual packages where if you're not around your team, it doesn't really matter as much here. Like in my case, I'm like in a hybrid case where my favorite team does not get defaulted to TV. Packer fans don't have to worry about it at all.
I got to cut you off. We got major breaking news.
Okay.
Major breaking news. Packers fans can exhale. Joe Barry will not return as Packers defensive coordinator, per Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network.
Hallelujah.
Packers fans, there you go. He is not coming back. All right, kind of a change of direction right now, Lucas.
That's okay.
Yeah, we'll get back to the Amazon thing, but this is just dropped a couple minutes ago. He is not coming back. Not coming back. Which we talked a little bit about it yesterday, and I put up a poll. I'll bring up the poll. So I posted a poll. Do you think, not do you want or do you think he should, but do you think Matt LaFleur will bring back Joe Barry? And the majority said yes. It was close, but it was 50. Let me get the final numbers. 57% said yes, that Joe Barry would be back. They thought he'd be back.
He was trending that way. I would have, if you told me make a choice. I think it was going to be coming back the way the season was ending, the way the defense was playing better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were shutting down some teams, and the way LaFleur was talking.
Yep.
Was this LaFleur's choice, or was this coming from further up in the organization going, really? Really? We're going to run it back?
Maybe a little bit of both. But I also think LaFleur recognizes, too, that I don't know. I think he knew he had to make a move. I think he knew he had to make a move. As much as he didn't want to, I think he recognizes he had to make a move. I'm sure there was some input from upstairs, but I don't think Goody necessarily went down and said, you got to do this or you're gone. That ultimatum sort of thing. I'm sure he gave his opinion and such, and I'm sure Goody's probably frustrated too of how much resources they've put in that defense, and they're not consistently a top 5, top 10 unit over there.
Yeah.
It's like, why do we keep investing in this if we're not getting the return that we were expecting on this?
Yeah. It's the big picture is that they needed to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of change do you think they should make?
As a
coordinator.
As a coordinator.
And tying that into scheme and what works best with the personnel, understanding, of course, it will change after free agency draft. But based on what's likely to happen and what works best for Matt LaFleur's coaching style, his overall approach that we've seen now going back to 2019, I mean, I don't know if we go so far as to say, who would you target right now? But maybe you got someone in mind. What's your take?
I kind of mentioned it the other day, but I think it was on the telecast. Or no, it was Mita Kimes. So you drop her name a lot, so I'll drop her name right now.
Good.
Mita Kimes had a very interesting tweet a few days ago. She was talking about the job that Mike McDonald has done with the Ravens, defensive coordinator over there with the Ravens. And she made the point, too, of like how much that Ravens defense has been giving fits to Shanahan-style offenses, which is LaFleur, Bobby Slowick, Shanahan, et cetera, et cetera. And, she mentioned, too, the Shanahan offense has been giving the NFL fits for the last few years. And as we know, the NFL is all about a cycle, right? Mm-hmm. For a couple of years, it might be the offense has the advantage or a certain style has the advantage, and then defense catches up, then the offense catches up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we're going to see more of that Shanahan-style offense, I would want a defense that would give it also fits. So that's where I was kind of looking at, is there something from the Ravens that we could take away? That style of defense. And a very, very, anybody who watches the Ravens, very aggressive defense. Look what they did to C.J. Stroud, right? It was just wreaking havoc all over him. Mm-hmm. And I know it's kind of hard, to pinpoint a coach without, we'll bring back Mike Zimmer or, or Lovie Smith or whatever, those guys. Wade Phillips is still around. If I had to pick a style, I think I kind of want a little bit of what the magic that the Ravens have on defense right now. That intrigues me. And I thought Mina Kimes made a really interesting point on that.
I think, and given that we're not going to be able to see it, I mean, there could be interviews, but nothing's going to happen until at least after the AFC Championship game, and maybe not for another 2.5 weeks, depending on what happens on Sunday. I think the Packers can afford to wait a little bit. This isn't like head coach got to get him now. I mean,
I did think
right move.
I did think if they were going to make that move, they had to do it this week. Both for Barry's, like, okay, if we're going to make the move, let's just make the move here. And then also too, because with coaching hirings, with staff starting to fill up and new coaches getting into place, if you wanted a wider pool, you had to make the move sooner rather than later, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. If there was somebody out there who's maybe not in the postseason that you haven't, Chris Harris is going to be mentioned. He interviewed for the Packers a few years ago. He just interviewed or is going to interview with the Bears for their defensive coordinator position. He's with Tennessee. Ejiro Evero, those names out there. So if you want to leg up on that, you probably had to make the move sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
If you want that wider talent pool to pick from.
Yeah, because I'm reading Albert Breer's tweet from 4 minutes ago saying Chris Harris crushed his interview with the Packers a couple years ago, and LaFleur worked with Evero in Los Angeles, so those would be two names to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Harris, from the Titans.
And Evero actually did coach for the Packers.
That's right.
He was, I believe, a quality control assistant under Mike McCarthy.
Just to brace yourself for potential national takes. Those who aren't around here, I see Doug Gottlieb already saying, beat the Cowboys, give the 49ers all they can handle. Get fired. McCarthy loses to the Packers, not close to 49ers, keeps his job.
Oh, boy.
So there could be a little bit of that going around today, like, wow, the Packers screwed up with this move. brace yourself.
That's examples of non-local people who don't watch every single game. And
it's ironic given Gottlieb's Wisconsin history,
right?
But folks, just be ready. I don't think that's going to be most people aren't going to be talking about it today because there's plenty of other stuff going on, but that could be part of the takes. Okay, so are you happy? As a Packers fan, are you happy?
Okay. Let me say this. I don't appreciate. I shouldn't say appreciate. I don't celebrate when people lose jobs. I don't care at what level.
Yeah, but that notwithstanding, the personal aspect of it, of course.
So I did think they had to make a move. And that part, I did think that he had to make a move. Regardless of how well they've played down the stretch the last couple of weeks. You look at the consistency factor with this defense. Last year, great. They played great down the stretch. What was the talk? Hey, we got to start faster this year. And I think for the most part, the defense held their own the first part, right? Because we were saying a lot of these games in the first part of the season, it was like, hey, defense did enough to win. The offense was the unit that was struggling. And then it was just, once the offense finally caught up, the defense, something changed. And it didn't become consistent. It didn't become consistent in that. And then you had Joe Barry, going in a presser saying, yeah, it's been really hard on me and my family, talking about the negative, media coverage and job status out there. I think once that creeps in your mind, we're all human and it does, but once you put it out there publicly too, it's like, okay, maybe it's better time for both sides to move on from that situation. I think, honestly, Joe may not say this, and I don't think he'll ever get a defensive coordinator job again. But maybe for his own personal health and personal side of things, it might be better just to move on from that situation.
Yeah.
At that point in time.
Yeah. And I don't know how much incoming he feels from any of this. We always wonder what's the level of separation of how much criticism do you actually notice? I mean, he may be fully insulated from it and it's all internal and you're like, is this good? Is this not? And it's just like a regular job for any of us. I have no idea. But yeah, I don't know who would necessarily hire him either. I could see consultant sort of thing.
Like a Dom Capers, where he's like a consultant sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's okay. You don't know, it's not a knock on him, but a defensive coordinator doesn't have to be a defensive coordinator for their entire life.
Right.
Yeah, you do have the occasional DC and OC that I'm thinking of Tom Moore or someone like that, and they can be a coordinator into their 80s. Occasionally that works.
Wade Phillips even was like 70s. So,
or who's the guy from the Steelers, played with the Lions?
Oh, Dick LeBeau.
Yeah. You get those occasional ones. The vast majority are not going to be that night. And there's no reason to think that Joe Barry would be. I mean, maybe there'll be some place where it takes a flyer and it's a team that really needs to rebuild. And maybe that works. Sometimes there's a rehabilitation too, but we've probably seen the last of him as a defensive coordinator. So be it.
This also tells me, since it happened on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, that regardless of what happened at the end of the regular season, it was trending that way. Like I think Matt LaFleur already kind of had it in his mind that he was going to make a change.
Yep.
The fact that it happened already right now.
Yep. This quickly. Yeah. I don't think he liked making this move either.
I don't either.
At all.
I don't either. And honestly, I don't think, he's probably disappointed, but I don't think Joe Barry's surprised by any means of the decision either. I don't want to speak for him. I don't want to, assume that, but come on. I think he's probably like, yeah, I kind of expected this to happen.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Well, and the thing is, it's probably not really thinking this, he kind of went out a little bit, not on top, but towards the top. Better defensive performances towards the end.
That's true.
And that's what we saw. He did well in the playoffs. If they had beaten the 49ers, is this still happening? Let's say they lose to the Lions this week. Was this happening a week from today?
I'll revisit what I said the other day. I thought he didn't fire him in the season, I felt like the decision was already made. He's gone. Regardless, he's gone. I backed off that a little bit just the other day. I'm like, ooh, I don't know anymore. If he would have beaten if they would have beaten the 49ers, ooh, that's tough. Because we've seen coordinators still get fired after NFC Championship games or AFC Championship games.
Right.
We've seen that. Mike Pettin is an example of that. Gets fired after the Tampa Bay one, or let go, or doesn't renew his contract, whatever phrase you want to use out there. Andy Reid's done that. was it the coordinator before Spagnuolo? Bob something, I think it was. Whatever it was. We've seen that before. So I think the better question might have been if they went to the Super Bowl. Jeez. Would he still be there?
Yeah. I think he probably still is.
I do too.
I mean, if the defense performs well, because that would have to be, I mean, as well as the offense is playing, you still would have to shut down the best part of the Lions, their offense, the best part of, well, not really the Chiefs this year, but, well, and the Ravens are 50-50 on that. The point being, if you have a good defensive performance on a Super Bowl run, do you then fire your defensive coordinator? Now, that actually seems backwards.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that gets to the whole point of why do you play the game? To win the Super Bowl? Well, mission accomplished. So you shouldn't be upset about it and need to fire people at that point.
Right.
That renders everything else obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it shouldn't be addressed at some point, but in the near term, yeah, you're not like fire this guy. No, don't.
Yeah, I'm curious now. Where do they go? I know there's going to be a lot of Packer fans that say Jimmy Leonard. I think that ship has sailed. That to me, that ship has sailed. I mean, unless it's just very under the radar, you're not even hearing his name with all these positions open right now.
No, I think it's done.
I think, and the fact that, he already turned him down, apparently, when they hired Joe Barry, I think that has sailed. So while it's a cool story, I don't think it's going to happen. I think we should just probably get that one out of our minds.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm genuinely curious. I think, and I mentioned this last week, it'll be curious. Does he go? Does LaFleur go with a coach that he's familiar with, like he did with Joe Barry? Because then you kind of trust each other. You're a little bit familiar. You kind of know each other's tendencies, which in some cases work. Some it doesn't, because maybe you are too committed to that guy, right? Might be kind of a downfall of McCarthy with the Dom Capers years, a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you bring somebody in that you don't have any connection with, you don't really know about them, but they got a really good resume, but it could turn into what we saw with the Giants and Wake Martindale and Dable over there. Because Dable was getting like a lot of credit when he first got hired. He's bringing in coaches he doesn't have a connection with. He's just looking for the best coaches. That lasted 2 years because then apparently they didn't get along, and they had to like move on from each other.
It depends on the type of people involved. I'm wondering if Brian Daboll just doesn't. It's not a knock on Daboll, but he gets along with certain types of people, whereas maybe LaFleur is more easygoing. I mean, that's how life always works. We know people that get along with everybody.
Right.
They have no enemies in the world, and there are certain people, unless you're in Clash City, and then everything in between. So I guess that depends on the type of guy LaFleur is. My suspicion is he's far more towards the get along with everyone type. That's always the vibe I've gotten off of him.
Yep.
And I think I get a pretty strong other vibe with Dable. I might be just based on what I see on the sidelines. So that's a bad way to put it, but I think so. And what we hear internally, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is, even though LaFleur brought in a person that he knew just to start with, so maybe that's his first tendency, but I don't think he would, like, if Gutekunst said, look, you got to get the right person, it doesn't really matter. I don't think LaFleur is going to cause a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he understands the overarching situation that they're building something good here. Don't go for a type.
Right.
Get the right person, provided the right. I mean, you don't want to get the best person, the best qualified person who's also like a jerk. Well, you're not going to do that either.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more likely they're going to get someone who's not from the Matt LaFleur coaching tree, for lack of a better term.
Right. It will not be Bill Belichick.
Really?
I hope you're being sarcastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's not going to be Bill Belichick.
That'd be okay. What would you think if Bill Belichick became defensive coordinator of the Packers? Let's just go fantasy here. What would you think of that?
I think Matt LaFleur might struggle as a coach if Bill Belichick was there.
Yeah.
I instantly get Richard and Rick Pitino vibes from that. You know what I mean? No, it's like you're kind of maybe like, okay, what does he think of my decision? If I'm making a call, it's like, oh, does Uncle Bill, is he good with that?
Matt LaFleur with a what the F look on his face, and the look I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But then in the background, there's the shot of
Bill with a hoodie on, like looking like the Sith from Star Wars.
I could totally see that.
Oh,
that would be such a meme, and that might be true too. Yeah, I don't think it would necessarily work.
Yeah.
We have to throw Bill up in the press box. Just keep him away.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to work either.
Yeah.
So, no, it's not going to. Yeah, you're right. That ain't happening.
No. All right, Packers fans, what is there?
You got your wish.
You got your wish. Now, who do you want? Who do you want? Give me some names. All right? Give me some names. I want to hear names. Throw some out there. Chris Harris is being thrown out there. Ejiro is being thrown out there. Mike Zimmer apparently wants to get back in the game.
Ooh. Wow.
Mike Zimmer, a guy. Then you got to go to a 4-3. Can they do that? You willing to do that? That sort of stuff. What do you got for me? Send me some names, all right? And I don't think it's anybody currently on this staff. Don't think it's going to be somebody on that staff, like promoting. You know what I mean?
No.
So,
no, it's someone else.
And I know one listener had mentioned too a few weeks ago, kind of with the turnaround in the defense, was that, and I thought it was a good point, and I wish I remember the name, and I apologize, I'm not giving you the credit. With the change in play call, remember Matt LaFleur said he was going to be more involved in defensive stuff. Was that change because of LaFleur's input? Because he was involved in that more?
Maybe.
Was the performance because of LaFleur? I don't think we'll ever know that answer. But you can connect some dots potentially.
It's going to have to be someone that does it in an insider thing at some point that says, wow, we felt our defense, like from some unnamed player says, we felt our defense was so much better at the end of the season. And I did kind of wonder about that. Like how much of this defensive improvement was in the wake of that quote. And did bounce through the back of my mind a little bit.
I did find it kind of, we saw more video of Joe Barry in the booth calling plays than any other year. I think I've seen a defensive coordinator for Green Bay, camera shot of them. I mean, how many times was that camera right there, like right in front of them? You got your little table. And you know what I'm talking about, like watching a game.
Yeah.
They'd go to it. There's this little camera, and as a coach, you know that camera, what that camera's for, and it's on you. But how many times, like 5 times in a game or something like that, they'd have like a video image of Joe Barry. You could tell he's calling in a play, talking on a mindset. And it's like, you're either in trouble when the camera's there and recording you, or you're like a hot coaching candidate. There's no middle ground between there.
Which there were a lot of Joe Barry smile shots towards this latter part of the run, but
I mean, they even had a shot of him when the Packers on offense made a play and they went to Joe Barry and he's
okay. I think that's the one, because there was one, and I think I had the TV like really turned down or something, where I was distracted and I look up and I see Joe Barry. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Joe Barry I'm looking at, right? Because I shouldn't be seeing Joe Barry right now. Yeah, I think I know what we're talking about. Like, guys, this is like, what was the one shot that the Fox people couldn't get enough of, like the week before? Like they kept going back to something over and over and over and over and over again. And it's like they decided this week we're going to do the constant Joe Barry shots.
Yep, I agree.
And you couldn't get enough of it.
Oh, hey. No, I won't go down that road. No, we're not doing that. I thought of another coach. Because I'm trying to think, okay, offensively, would he bring somebody in? His good buddy Arthur Smith is looking for a job, the former Falcons coach.
Yeah.
I looked up his resume. He was a defensive quality control coach for the Titans in 2011. Do the whole Andy Reid, convert an offensive coach to defensive coordinator, or Bill Belichick with Matt Patricia, defense to offense.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. Please, for the love of all that is good, don't do that. Don't do that.
I can't see that happening.
So, he was with Washington, 07-08, defensive quality control coach. I think that's when Matty was there too, wasn't he? Maybe a little bit before Matty. I don't know, but put up the graphic of all that coaching staff in Washington.
Yeah.
Put that up there.
With everyone looking way younger.
Yep, exactly. All right. Get your names. Send them on over to me. We got to take a quick break. We had to audible there, so we'll try to regroup and catch up on everything after these quick words. Okay, so let's kind of regroup on some of the stuff we were hitting up today because it's been a busy Wednesday.
Yeah, stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Wow, the Brewers, Bucks, and Packers all made big news all within 24 hours.
Yep.
It's pretty cool.
Adrian Griffin fired yesterday. Doc Rivers sounds like he's going to be the new head coach for the Bucks. Brewers made a free agent signing, bringing in Rhys Hoskins, DH first baseman. And then about, 25 minutes ago, Joe Barry not coming back to the Packers.
Everything is happening. Ron Paul, Jiff.
Couldn't you do that tomorrow? So we had a main topic to hit on right away.
No, we got to do it all at once. Tomorrow will be dead.
Yeah, no kidding. So, but I asked for some names. We got a few Wink Martindales. We got a Vrabel. Remember, Vrabel was Matt LaFleur's boss for a year. Matt LaFleur was his offensive coordinator. I feel like that would almost be like a Dan Quinn one, where it could be just 1 year, maybe a couple of years, but he's going to be a head coach again at some point. We've gotten, I mentioned Wink Martindale over there. Somebody texted in Chris Shula and Jesse Minter. Shula, longtime Rams assistant coach. Well, Minter might be the new head coach of Michigan, depending on what Harbaugh does, right? Or it might follow Harbaugh over to the Chargers to be defensive coordinator. So who knows over there? But yeah, a lot of names out there.
There are a lot of.
Here's the thing. Whoever they decide, I highly doubt it'll be a consensus of love the pick.
Because there's not that guy out there right now anyway.
Unless it is Belichick, maybe. But
and even then, there'd be people who would do the
should
whole
be the head coach,
thing.
not defensive.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know if there is that perfect coach out there.
But that's okay. I mean, how many defensive coordinators have risen up and you don't
Should they go with a guy who's got experience or a first timer? It's the whole Adrian Griffin thing again now.
I think they can coordinators, I think you can have more leeway with that. And I think LaFleur has been a head coach long enough. I would not worry as much about having a newbie as defensive coordinator. I think they'll be fine. I have more trust that the Packers can figure this one out versus dicier in 2019, 2020.
I feel like whoever you hire, let them have a big say in his defensive assistants.
Okay, so when Joe Barry was first hired, sure was an unpopular pick, at least among fans. Is there a name that you're like, no, don't hire this guy who could legitimately be hired?
That I say don't hire, or fans will say don't hire.
Well,
it would be a similar Joe Barry reaction,
right? In a broad sense, not necessarily you, because we look at it more subtly than. Sorry to be blunt, a lot of fans are just like, oh, it sucks. Well, looking under the hood,
I got one name, Brandon Staley, former Chargers head coach.
Now, from your perspective or fan perspective?
That fan perspective, nobody's gonna like that one.
Gosh, yeah, that would be do you think he would be a good defensive coordinator?
I mean, he was good with the Rams for the 1 year he was over there.
That's 1 year.
Right. But is he better suited for coordinator? He's a Vic Fangio style. I feel like the Vic Fangio style. He's a Vic Fangio style type of guy.
Vic Fangio didn't do that great with the Vic Fangio style.
Right.
I know they had injuries, but the Dolphins weren't that great.
That's the name I feel like if it is that guy, there's going to be a lot of upset Packers fans.
Yeah, and that's also because Brandon Staley has leaped to the top of the...
At least you won't have to worry about his game management decisions.
That's true. Well, and that might be the thing. Again, some coaches are... Some small C coaches are not good head coaches, but they're good assistant coaches. And that might be the case with Staley. His defense didn't look that great with the Chargers, but that might be because he wasn't directly overseeing... he couldn't completely focus on defense.
Let me throw a name out there that nobody has mentioned, but he's taken interviews. Ron Rivera. Because he was at the Eagles, I think he interviewed for defensive coordinator.
I think I saw that.
Yeah. Ron Rivera. And he says he'd be open to it, being a defensive coordinator. What if it was Ron Rivera?
How good have his defenses been of late? And again, he's been a coach, so we can't fully focus on it.
And he hasn't been calling a play. He did a little bit this year after Jack Del Rio got the boot.
Pretty sure it won't be Jack Del Rio.
Nope. I'm okay with that one.
Yeah. I think Rivera would get a net negative response, not Staley levels. Because it seems like I'm guessing there are some who are going to say, well, the game has passed him by. Maybe a little bit. A little bit. I don't know. I think he's still broadly a good coach. I don't think the defense would be as potentially porous as it was under Joe Barry. But I could see that getting a bad reaction. Not terrible, though.
The name I mentioned yesterday was Anthony Weaver. And he's been getting head coaching interviews. But he's the assistant head coach for Baltimore right now and defensive line coach. Hot minute at defensive coordinator with the Texans. J.J. Watt was a big fan of him, if you remember, a few years ago. If he's open to being a defensive coordinator and calling plays, there's a Ravens connection there a little bit too.
Not bad.
I'd be open to that one.
Yeah.
Not Rex Ryan. Not Rex Ryan.
He won't be. No.
No, I don't know if anybody said that one yet, but I'm just like, I'm throwing that one out there already, not Rex Ryan.
Yeah, because I see Weaver's set for another commies interview.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but when you get to two, that you start to wonder a little bit more.
Oh, this could be fascinating.
It legitimately will be.
Biggest decision in Matt LaFleur's career?
Thus far, yeah, because it's something that he oversees. Because offensive coordinator is not as big of a deal. And then everything after that, I mean, I guess special teams, because it looked like such a disaster, but ultimately special teams doesn't matter as much as your defense being a sieve at certain times.
Knowing the expectations are going to be higher next year and years to come based off what happened this year, I think, this is his biggest decision to date. He's got to get this right.
How much does Darnell Savage, and I'm not sure your take, I haven't heard your take yet, but I'll put it this way, very possibly not being a Packer, how much does that affect defensive scheming next year?
I mean, maybe you find a defense coordinator, if you want Darnell Savage back, maybe you find a coordinator that better utilizes some of his skill sets. I mean, I thought Joe made a good point yesterday. You look at a lot of those secondary guys that have left Green Bay and actually had better careers in their second teams. Micah Hyde, Casey Hayward.
A lot, yeah.
You know, you couple
Rasul
of those guys.
Douglas, maybe?
Rasul Douglas. But it's going to depend on the scheme that defensive coach wants to bring in. Safety is a huge need this offseason for Green Bay. And that might kind of turn into like, they got to bring back Darnell Savage. They may have to pay a little bit more just because I think everybody is a free agent at this point besides Anthony Johnson.
Yeah.
And that includes Mr. Simone Biles. Jonathan Owens.
I like how you put that. Yeah, because, I mean, you don't want to hire a coordinator solely because of one player unless that player is so important.
He's a superstar player, TJ Watt-esque sort of thing.
Right. And your quarterbacks, in most cases, the occasional wide receiver, someone like that. The Packers don't have anyone to that level. So I don't think you're, in case anyone's like, well, maybe you should hire a guy that's going to have, no. Don't do it with regard to Darnell Savage. It'd be nice, to have that, but you think I also got to think long-term because a lot of these other players are going to be out after next year. The amount of turnover, you're rarely going to get a Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2021. Let's run it back. That is by definition the exception to the rule. You're going to have different players, so just go with a scheme and comfortability with the other coaches. Can everyone all work it all out, provided you're not clashing with in terms of scheme and doing like 3-4 when you have an obvious 4-3 team and you have to go through a year of adjustment because then next year's not going to be that good. It'll be good after that, but you're basically throwing away a year of defense. No, otherwise I don't think Savage is a factor in that. It shouldn't be a factor in that.
There's one name that nobody has mentioned yet, but they mentioned it a few weeks ago when the whole Joe Barry thing was really like, okay, he should be fired in the season. And nobody has mentioned it yet. So I don't know if that shine has kind of waned a little bit. Al Harris.
I saw, I'm forgetting what his real name is because it's just been on Supper Club All-Stars, one of our Twitter followers.
Matt.
Yep. He had Al Harris mentioned. What do you think of Al Harris?
Don't get caught up because he's a former Packer. That's what I don't want. And I get it. It's
the Bart Starr thing.
Right. It's
Forrest
a lovable
Gregg.
Packer. It's great career with Green Bay and such. And you look at, secondary play with Dallas and such, but now you're kind of wondering after that postseason game, are you sure you want that? Was it Dan Quinn? Was it Al? I don't know. I think people over exaggerate based off that stuff. If he is the best, I just want the best guy. I don't care if he's a former Packer or not. I don't give a rip. I think some people that matters, that improves their stock a little bit. To me, that shouldn't matter if they played for the team or not. I don't care. I just want the best coach out there. But you haven't heard his name elsewhere. So you kind of wonder around league circles, is he viewed as a potential defensive coordinator? Just because he coaches a position and he used to be a good player for your team doesn't necessarily mean he would be a very good defensive coordinator or a coach. So the fact we haven't really heard his name as possible mentions elsewhere, you wonder what the people who actually do this for a living view him as a potential game caller, if you know what I mean.
I'm looking I just did the Google search. Like the Cowboys SB Nation blog said, it's time to shine a light on the job Al Harris has done for the Dallas Cowboys. This was in mid-December. That's one of the only things I can really find. There's not a lot out there. There's some that's speculating on, let's see. I think he was mentioned as a potential Eagle hire. By like one of those, here's 3 people who should be hired. So then also the Packers. So it's a little out there, but not like in a hardcore, here are 3 names that we hear. That's not it.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's going to be Chris Harris or Ijiro. And I'm actually leaning towards more Chris. That's just my gut.
Yeah.
But, first impression gut, if you will, without really thinking about it too hard. Not saying that's who I would pick. That's where I feel like it's going to go.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
But get ready for all the articles and blogs from everybody out there that'll have like a top 5 or top 10 list.
Oh gosh, it's going to come full bore here.
But I think this would be an attractive job for a guy who wants to be a defensive coordinator. You got a young offense that looks like it's trending upward. A coach, a pretty stable coach. It's not going to be like a guy heading into his final year and he's got to do really well, otherwise he's fired. I don't think LaFleur's in that Mike McCarthy or Matt Eberflus category. You got some talent on that defense, a front office that has invested a lot in the defense. You got something to work with. I would think this is an attractive job for a defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Let's say it's Chris Harris. It's been a long time since he's been playing by relative standards. 2011 was the last time he played on an NFC North team. Is there still any familiarity at that point?
No.
Even with franchise tendencies to help?
No. I don't think so.
There's some people are going to say, well, he was a Bear. So okay.
Well, you know what? Lucas Butkus, his uncle was Mike, or Luke, the Butkus, Dick Butkus. So, I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
Let's back off that a little bit. So
your money right now is on Chris Harris. If you had to choose.
If I had to list the DK odds, minus 150, Chris Harris. How about that?
Okay.
Then Ijiro's plus 200.
Okay.
I'm just putting out numbers now.
Yeah.
Betting odds.
Okay.
Those are my 2.
Okay. That seems
and honestly, I don't think either one of those is going to be it's going to be 50-50 amongst Packers fans, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be a splashy one.
Right. But I think most would be okay with that too. Like, let's let this play out. At least it's not going to be a disaster pick. At least we don't think it's going to be.
Right. All right. So we got to take our final break here. Oh, boy. Let's do some quick picks. Bucks do play tonight. They will have a different coach on the sidelines. Won't be Doc Rivers, I don't think, unless something really weird happens. But we'll make that pick coming up next. All right, let's make a quick pick here. Picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room in Eau Claire. Want a chance to grab some Man Cave Light, watch the game, head on over to the Elbow Room next to the Banbury place over there. Bucks, they take on Cleveland at home tonight. Joe Prunty right now is going to be the coach, unless Doc Rivers comes in on a cape, Superman cape, flies in, is ready to go right away tonight if he does get hired. The Bucks win.
Style.
Right, yeah. Bucks win.
I almost want to pull this off the board. There's so much uncertainty with this one. I'll say yes. Another 6.5 point favorites, according to ESPN Bet. But I do think they cover, but I think they win.
I think they lose tonight. I think they lose tonight. Cleveland's playing better.
They are. I just think there's going to be something about the Bucks, like they want to make a point with this.
Mm-hmm. Let's go Phoenix and Dallas.
I know Phoenix is improving of late. It's happening. I'll take Phoenix.
I'm gonna take Phoenix as well,
On
and then
ABC.
Yeah, right. And then your T-Wolves taking on Washington.
They've been quietly a little of late, but I don't know that there's a trend in that. I mean, they're the immature call out from Chris Finch, but then it was turnovers the other night. They should demolish the Wizards. Should. I will say they will. I don't know that they're going to cover this one. They're going to win.
Yeah. I'm going to go Timberwolves in this one too. So just a few games here because we're running out of time. I'll throw another name out there. Leslie Frazier.
What would you think of that? I mean, he's done a decent job as a defensive coordinator, but we also remember him as head coach.
Right. He took the year off. He wasn't with Buffalo. He actually, this is where I'm going to kind of, maybe there's something there. Leslie Frazier. So when it was like a preseason and training camp, he was kind of going around to different camps. He was at Green Bay's. He was visiting different camps and kind of that sort of stuff. I don't know exactly what the role was he was playing, but he did visit Green Bay during preseason and training camp. So obviously LaFleur might be very small, but probably knows him just very, very, very little.
Yeah.
But there is a connection.
Okay.
There's a connection. So maybe. Leslie Frazier joined the NFL Network. And so he was doing something with the NFL Network for a little bit there. So, but I know he was getting some interviews this year for head coaching jobs too. But oh boy, the speculation is going to be unbearable, but I love it. Bring me the rumors, man. I love it. So here we go. What a day. What a day, man.
I mean, what if Doc Rivers turns out not to be the choice?
What if it's Jeff Van Gundy?
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Ooh, boy.
I know they were talking about maybe Atkinson, the assistant coach from Golden State, because he was a candidate.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know, but I think Doc's
going to
be
Doc.
Yeah, it's going to be Doc.
It will be.
It's going to be. He's going to come home. He's going to get a loud ovation, I think, for as much as Bucks fans that we heard from. I think he's going to get a loud ovation whenever he does make his return to Milwaukee. Yeah. So, and you know what? Bucks are going to be hitting the road here starting next week. So, no better way to bond than on a 5-game Western Conference road trip.
Might as well.
Hotel dinners and game plane rides. Yeah.
Board games and everything.
I still will never forgive Doc, though, when he was the Orlando Magic coach. He is the reason why they did not get Tim Duncan, because he had that strict policy of no family members on the plane. You cost us, Doc. So Tim Duncan in Orlando.
So what about Robin and Thanasis?
Well, they're on the team.
Yeah. Still family members, just saying.
But like girlfriends and wives,
yeah,
he said.
I know.
I hope you've changed your ways, Doc. I hope you changed it. Have a good day. Let's do it again tomorrow at 6 a.m.